Chapter 107. This world was changing too quickly, and Li Xian could no longer adapt to it. A few minutes ago, he had seen Gohan's sword lady being stabbed with syringes all over her face. Li Xian was very happy. However, this sword lady had been hit by so many syringes. Why wasn't she paralyzed? This was illogical. There was no ancient sword rank sword lady that could be immune to the poison of the small demon beast. Even the leisurely celestial sword would not be able to do so. The information clearly stated that the leisurely celestial sword had been paralyzed by the small demon beast's poison when it had encountered the small demon beast. If not for the fact that the successor of the Lun Yin clan was a sword master, the leisurely celestial sword might have already been broken. Alright, even if the Qing Pin sword had a poison immunity halo, as long as she did not have the ability to fly, she could only allow the little fiend to humiliate her in the air. But this little fiend should have continued to fly. Why couldn't you fly after I grabbed you? Are your wings New Orleans roast chicken wings? In the end, that Qing Pin threw you on the ground, and you couldn't even fly. You've really embarrassed all the little fiends. Li Xian gritted his teeth and complained. What happened next made Li Xian feel despair. The Qing Pin sword, which had been in a stalemate with the little fiend for a while, had cleverly chopped off its wings and poked holes all over its body. A QR code floated out of the little fiend's body. That's right. The little fiend did not bleed, but it was a QR code. No one knew which world this little fiend came from. Li Xian felt that he had suffered a huge loss this time. Not only did he not humiliate Gohan, but he had also released the little fiend behind his back. Once the management system in the building of practical training reported this to the higher-ups, he would have no other choice but to resign. Li Xian was furious. He was indignant. He blamed the heavens and everyone else. His mind was filled with all kinds of negative emotions, and his face was longer than a horse's. However, there was an advantage to this, and that was that the wrinkles on his face had been smoothed out. Li Xian, who was filled with hatred, did not notice a strange situation. The little demonic beast was clearly lying on the ground with its eyes closed. It was not even breathing, and its body was poked until it looked like a honeycomb briquette. However, the dimensional vortex that would take it away did not appear for a long time. What did this mean? Does this mean that the little demonic beast didn't die? Gohan keenly sensed that something was wrong. There were quite a few monster-type Yuan Ko that didn't bleed after death, just like the little demonic beasts. Instead, they had a QR code flowing on their bodies. Combining all the information on Yuan Ko, he found some vague information, such as immortality, evolution, abnormal development, and so on. Could it be? Qing Pin, come back immediately. Hurry. The ominous feeling in Gohan's heart was extremely strong. He immediately made a prompt decision and ordered Qing Pin, who was still poking holes in the little demonic beast's body, to return to his side. Gohan, poking holes is so fun. It's even more fun than poking your nose. Qing Pin said happily, unwilling to return. When did this cute guy poke my nose? Was it when I was sleeping? No wonder I've been dreaming about strange things recently. Gohan thought thoughtfully. Wait, that's not right. Why am I thinking about this? Qing Pin, come back. Gohan could not wait for Qing Pin to return. He ran toward Qing Pin, intending to manually bring Qing Pin back. Gohan, come poke too. Qing Pin saw Gohan running toward her. She excitedly turned around and waved at Gohan. What she didn't know was that the moment she turned around, countless QR codes burst out of the little demonic beast's body like a tide, wrapping the little demonic beast's body into a dumpling. Then, almost in an instant, the dumpling grew to the size of a normal person. Little demonic beast has evolved. Demonic beast. In the darkness, there seemed to be a familiar voice reciting these lines, as well as a familiar sound of music. As the dumpling wrapped by the QR codes disappeared, a human-shaped demon with a pair of broken demon wings and a pair of demon horns on its head appeared behind Qing Pin. Claws of death. The demonic beast's hand was like rubber. It rapidly extended, and its palm quickly became the size of Qing Pin's body. Its 5 fingers instantly turned into 5 sharp claws that were like daggers, stabbing toward the back of Qing Pin's sword. The void on the surface of Qing Pin's body shook. This was a sign that the protective shield had suffered a serious attack and was beginning to become unstable. This ripple was like a candle in the wind, but in the end, it persisted and did not break. The claws of death did not harm Qingpin's body. Qingpin returned to the sword. At this time, Guhan finally ran to Qing Qiu's side and held her in his arms. Just as he was about to return her to his sword, the evil demon beast's other claw of death came right at him. The demonic beast had 2 hands, so it naturally had 2 claws of death that it could use. This was common sense. Guhan, who was hugging Qingpin, did not have time to fight before he was hit by the claws of death. The protective shield on the surface of Qingpin and Guhan's bodies, finally, could not withstand the damage and shattered. Guhan's feet were pierced by 2 fingers of the claws of death. Then, the demonic beast flung Guhan forcefully, sending him flying into the wall and crashing down heavily. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Great! Li Xian could not help but applaud. Today's story had really taken a turn. He had thought that Guhan had escaped a calamity, but he had never expected the little demonic beast to evolve at the critical moment. It had evolved into a demonic beast and directly tortured Guhan. Li Xian heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Guhan's miserable state. After venting his anger, he began to worry in his heart. This brat wouldn't be directly killed, right? Wasn't his revenge a little too ruthless? Forget it. There were so many students around. It was just that he could not be saved even if he died on the spot. Li Xian let go of his worries about Guhan's life and gradually became excited. Now, it was time for him to show up. As long as he destroyed this demonic beast and protected the other students, the Academy might consider his contributions and let him make up for his mistakes. Moreover, if he killed this demonic beast valiantly, he might be able to attract the attention of the female student called A.O. Lin. Then, there would be a touching teacher-student relationship. Moreover, A.O. Lin had the Tianwen sword in her hands. She would definitely be a powerful sword wielder in the future. Not only would he be able to win the heart of a beauty, but he would also have a pair of good legs. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. System: scan Yuan Ko's information. With the building of practical training system, Li Xian did not have to use his personal terminal to scan Yuan Ko's information. Yes, begin scanning. Yuan Ko's information has been transmitted to your brain. Apologies, the information is incomplete. There is insufficient information regarding this Yuan Ko. Now, the existing information will be transmitted to your brain. Yuan Ko name: Demonic Beast. Level: Phantom. Soul: 2-dimensional world, digital game. Health points: Attack: 3 stars. Agility: Magic power. Ability: a pair of demonic claws that can change shape at will is his most powerful weapon. At the same time, his wings can emit destructive energy beams. Other abilities: unknown. Ultimate skill: Claws of Death, Razor Wings, collapsing heaven and earth. Introduction: a demon-type monster that exists in a digital game created by humans in the 2-dimensional world. It evolved from a small demonic beast and has a very intelligent and cunning personality. It likes to hide behind the scenes and control its subordinates to fight. It will not reveal its true self unless it is absolutely necessary. Battle record: it has not appeared in many battles in the real world. It has appeared 3 times in total. The discoverers are divided into 2 ancient sword bearers and 1 famous sword bearer. Battle result: 2 ancient sword bearers have died. The famous sword bearer has won easily. Estimated combat power is between Phantom and Soul. Battle suggestion: if you encounter a demonic beast, ancient sword bearers are advised to escape immediately. Treasured sword bearers can try to fight it. If the situation is not right, escape immediately. After reading the information, Li Xian thought for a second and felt that this fight could be fought. Even if he could not defeat it, he could still call for backup. This was the core area of the sword bearers, Yuzhong University. As long as he could drag it out for a few minutes, countless sword bearers would rush over and cut this demonic beast into pieces. Students, run quickly. He has evolved into a soul-level Yuan Ko. The defensive crystal pillars of the beginner arena cannot defend against his attacks. You guys retreat quickly. Teacher will hold this place for you guys. Even if I have to risk my life, I will protect your safety." Li Xian used the solemn and stirring emotions in his chest to express his deep monologue. Then, he brought with him the solemn and stirring feeling of a hero who would never return after leaving. Seeing Li Xian's clumsy acting skills, Liu Ling sneered. Liu Ling was far above Li Xian in terms of the terrifying strength of the demonic beast. This was because out of the 3 sword-bearers who had encountered the demonic beast, the only famous sword-bearer who had killed the demonic beast was her, Liu Ling's guest. Detailed information on the demonic beast was hidden in Liu Ling's personal terminal. "Students, how can we abandon our teacher and escape alone?" Liu Ling waved her fists. "Students, we will stay here and cheer for Teacher Li Xian. We will let Teacher Li Xian know that our class 22654 is a great group that lives and dies together." Liu Ling deliberately said these impassioned words. After all, everyone present was a hot-blooded youth. They all expressed that they wanted to stay with their teacher and not run away. Li Xian was also happy that someone was admiring his handsome appearance while he was fighting the demonic beast. He flipped his hair in a very flashy manner and pulled out another sword from behind his back. This was Li Xian's treasured sword lady. It was a man-made treasured sword, the cicada sword. Chapter 108. Cicada sword was one of the more unique existences among the sword ladies. This was because cicada sword ladies had a pair of wings that were as thin as a cicada's. This made them different from most sword ladies that looked no different from humans. These sword maidens were called demon sword maidens because the special parts of their bodies looked similar to monsters. However, demon sword lady wasn't a derogatory term. On the contrary, it was a rather positive term. Many sword bearers wished to have a demon sword lady. This was because demon sword ladies were relatively rare. Their combat power was generally above average among sword ladies of the same level. After Cicada Sword Lady appeared, she spread her cicada-like wings. With a slight flap, she flew into the sky like a fairy from a fairy tale. When the cicada's wings flapped, bits of sparkling and translucent dust would fall down. Under the sunlight, the sparkling and translucent dust was like a dream. One had to admit that Chan Yi's entrance was extremely cool, especially when she flew into the air. Her holy and perfect appearance completely crushed poor Scholar's silly and adorable appearance, who only knew how to wave his hands at the air above his head. "Teacher Li Xian is so handsome. Teacher Li Xian, you can do it. Kill that damned Yuan Ko." The surrounding students cheered, causing Li Xian's satisfaction to skyrocket. He started to feel like he was walking on air. "Cicada Sword Lady, kill that demon. Be quick and graceful." The smug Li Xian had suddenly forgotten about the reminder in the illustrated handbook that warned sword wielders of the treasure sword rank to be wary of the demonic beast's battle prowess. All he wanted was to use Cicada Wing's artistic battle process to put a perfect end to his pretentious act. Unfortunately, Li Xian wasn't the main character. He was just a cameo. Let's shift our gaze to Guhan, who no one cared about. His legs were pierced by a demon beast, and he was even knocked against the wall. There's no need to mention how pitiful he looks right now. Not only was blood flowing out of the 2 holes in his feet, but he was also foaming at the corner of his mouth. "Hey, Sour Popsicle, don't scare me. Don't tell me you're going to be sacrificed." At the crucial moment, his close friend came just in time. Song Hama immediately ran to Gohan's side and asked worriedly, "I'm fine, I won't die, cough, cough." Gohan coughed out a few mouthfuls of black blood. "I can't move my neck. I can't see Qingpin anymore. How's my Qingpin now? Qingpin is fine. Qingpin is fine. Gohan, are you about to die?" Gohan heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Qingpin's heartless voice. He laughed and scolded. "How did I end up with a heartless sword mistress like you? I'm sorry, this small injury won't kill me. Toad, please lend me a medical pod. I can't open my dimensional pocket right now." In fact, Gohan's injuries were very serious. The injury on his leg wasn't a big deal. After applying some hemostatic medicine, he wouldn't die for a while. However, the injury in Gohan's abdomen could take Gohan's life at any time. 4 of his 5 internal organs were bleeding profusely. His lungs were displaced. Not to mention, 7 of his ribs were directly broken. His spine was also smashed. If he was in the modern 21st century, he wouldn't last more than 10 minutes unless he was sent to the operating room immediately. But now it was the 31st century. Human science had made great progress. The medical pod was a sci-fi technology that had been developed hundreds of years ago. It was put into practical use. Moreover, it was a portable medical pod that could be carried around. However, the medical pod wasn't omnipotent. It could only treat physical injuries such as gunshot wounds, knife wounds, bruises, and crush injuries. For genetic injuries, the medical pod couldn't help even if it wanted to. If the injury was too serious, such as internal organs being smashed, limbs being cut off, or head being removed, the medical pod wouldn't be able to treat it. Even if it couldn't be treated, it could be frozen and sent to a large hospital to be treated. There is a full set of wilderness survival equipment in the multidimensional bag distributed by the Sword Committee, including such a portable medical pod. Gahan's injury would be fine after a nap in the medical pod. Now, Gahan had to expend a lot of energy to move. It was impossible to take out the medical pod from his multidimensional bag. He had to borrow it from Song Hama first. Oh, no problem. Song Hama held the multidimensional bag and took out the medical pod. It looked like a coffin, but the lines of the item were very streamlined. It looked as high-end as an Apple computer. At this time, Liu Ling walked over and took out a small bottle of powder from the multidimensional bag. Toad, take back your medical pod. Use it and sleep until tomorrow morning. Gahan might not be able to recover. Before Song Hama could speak, Liu Ling opened the small bottle. She pinched Gahan's mouth with one hand and poured all the powder into it. Ao Lin, what are you doing? What strange thing did you feed Gahan? Song Hama was anxious. Although she had been with Ao Lin for half a day, Ao Lin was like a mystery to Song Hama. If it wasn't for the fact that Gahan seemed to know everything about her, Song Hama wouldn't even want to associate with her. This is the latest generation of Wu Yue brand nano-medical capsules. Liu Ling handed the empty bottle to Song Hama. Song Hama looked at it and saw that it was indeed labeled with Wu Yue brand. The nanomedical capsules were a level more advanced than the medical pods. Each grain of powder in the small bottle was a capsule, and each capsule contained 10 to 100 nanomachines. These nanomachines followed the capillaries in the esophagus and entered the various organs and parts of the human body to quickly repair the damaged organs. I estimate that your good friend will be able to jump up and down in a minute, Liu Ling said with a smile. How much does this nanomedical capsule cost? After Song Hama confirmed that the bottle didn't contain poison, he began to care about the price of the capsule. As far as he knew, this thing wasn't just expensive. Only advanced sword wielders would carry 1 or 2 bottles with them to save their lives. It's not expensive. It's only about 3 million yuan per bottle. Ao Lin said casually. What? 3 million? When Song Hama heard this number, he was so shocked that he jumped. Let's talk about this. Our Gahan never asked you for this medical capsule. You were the one who fed it to Gahan. We won't admit it. I didn't ask you to admit it. Liu Ling raised her eyebrows. She wanted to refute, but halfway through her words, she heard Gahan's energetic voice. It seemed like his injuries were almost healed. I'll admit it. I owe you 3 million yuan. Sour popsicle, did you hit your head? That's 3 million yuan. 3 million yuan. Since when did you become AF * King Tycoon? 3 million yuan. And you're admitting it just like that? Song Hama was extremely anxious. Was the Gahan in front of him still the stingy best friend Gahan who could eat for a week with 100 yuan of food expenses? Song Hama, we're already sword wielders. If we put in a little more effort, we can save up 3 million yuan in 2 years. As Gahan spoke, the hole in his foot caused by the demonic beast had completely healed. This was indeed a life-saving medicine worth 3 million yuan. Compared to 3 million yuan, I don't want to waste a precious favor, Gahan said as he stood up. Something worth 3 million yuan was really effective. You injure my vital soul, so you must die by my hands. Guhan grabbed Qingpin's little neck and lifted her up like a little kitten. The hilt of Qingpin's sword was on a small piece of soft flesh on the back of her neck. Besides, our teacher Li Xian can't hold on much longer. Li Xian could not hold on any longer. He was filled with regret. That fool, Guhan, had clearly demonstrated the horrors of provoking a demonic beast. How could he have been fooled by a group of students? How could he have rushed forward to act cool in the heat of the moment? He was now in such a sorry state. The beginning of the battle was beautiful. After seriously injuring Gahan, the demonic beast stood dumbly on the spot and didn't move. It was only when the Sword Maiden's cicada wings flew to its back and the cicada wings' sword embroidered the word death on the demonic beast's back like embroidery that the demonic beast finally reacted. Deathclaw. Li Xian, who had seen this move used on Gahan before and knew how powerful it was already on alert. He immediately ordered the cicada wings' sword to dodge. The cicada wings' sword was a killing path sword maiden. It had powerful attack and dodging abilities, but its defense was not even comparable to some ancient sword rank sword maidens. When faced with the demonic beast's killer move, dodging was indeed the best choice. The cicada wings' sword's body was very agile. It was as if she was dancing on the tip of a knife, causing a few of the demonic beast's death claw to miss and land on the ground. At the same time, the cicada wings' sword left more than 10 bloody marks on the demonic beast's body. Li Xian was very satisfied with the development of the plot up to this point. However, very quickly, the plot took a turn for the worse. After dodging a death claw, the cicada wing sword, which was preparing to attack during the gap between the skills, suddenly stood motionless on the spot. Its expression was blank, and it stopped moving. This was because the ground under the feet of Li Xian, who was giving instructions from afar, had suddenly cracked open. As they were on the second floor of the building of practical training, the crack under Li Xian's feet led directly to the first floor of the building of practical training. Heaven falls and earth rends. The demonic beast's second skill could split the ground at will. Previously, the primordial silhouettes had risen from the ground. In other words, the first floor of the building of practical training was filled with primordial silhouettes locked in cages. If Li Xian's body were to fall down and then fall into another cage, it would be a terrible experience. In a moment of desperation, Li Xian grabbed the edge of the cracked ground and used all his strength to climb back up. However, if he did that, Li Xian would not be able to divert his attention to command cicada wings. This was the biggest difference between a man-made sword maiden and a natural one. A natural sword maiden could fight according to her own will even without the sword bearer's orders. Although in theory, man-made sword maidens possess the most basic judgment and ability to act, once the man-made sword maidens lost the sword bearer's command in an intense battle, they would be no different from a 3-year-old child. Hence, cicada wings met a tragic end. When Li Xian finally climbed back to the ground, cicada wing's sword had already suffered a few death claw attacks from the demonic beast. The already weak protective shield on her body had already begun to ripple and could collapse at any time. Chapter 109. Cicada Wing Comeback. Li Xian, who had climbed out of the pit with great difficulty, decided to escape. The demonic beast was too ferocious. Cicada Wing had attacked the demonic beast more than 10 times with the power of the murderous sword maiden, but did not seem to be seriously injured. Instead, the demonic beast's sneak attack had almost caused Cicada Wing's personal shield to collapse. Li Xian was a veteran with more than 10 years of combat experience. His instincts told him that he could not defeat the demonic beast and that escaping was the best option. This was Yuzhong University, the base camp of the sword bearers. As long as he escaped from the building of practical training, he would be safe. As for his student, forget it. He could not care less. He could only hope that the dimensional crystal pillar would be able to stop this soul-level Yuan Ko. Cicada Wing finally received another order from the sword bearer. It flapped its wings and planned to escape with Li Xian. However, the demonic beast did not seem to want to let Cicada Wing leave. It grabbed at Cicada Wing with its deathly claw. Dodge! Li Xian ordered. Cicada Wing flapped its wings in the opposite direction and changed directions in the air, successfully evading the deathly claw. Unexpectedly, another deathly claw appeared in the path of Cicada Wing's evasive maneuver. This time, Cicada Wing was unable to dodge. Like a butterfly that had fallen into a trap, it was caught in the demonic beast's palm. Li Xian had forgotten that the demonic beast had two hands. In fact, it could use the deathly claw twice at the same time. Cicada Wing's personal shield was already in a state of collapse. After being hit by the deathly claw, the personal shield shattered on the spot. Cracks like glass could be seen in the air. Without the protection of the personal shield, the demonic beast's 5 fingers easily pierced Cicada Wing's sword body. At this moment, the weakness of the murderous sword maiden was completely exposed. If Cicada Wing was a Confucian or martial Dao sword maiden, she would be able to hold on for a while with the strength of her body. However, Cicada Wing was a murderous sword maiden. Her body was only a few times more fragile than an ordinary human girl's. "Ah!" Cicada Wing screamed. Her severely injured body turned into light spots and disappeared, returning to her sword form. She slipped through the demonic beast's fingers and fell to the ground. If a sword maiden was injured in battle and forced to return to her sword form, it meant that the sword maiden's sword body was on the verge of collapse. At this moment, Zhao Fu had to put the sword lady back into the sword scabbard to protect her. If the sword lady received enough damage in her sword lady form, the sword lady would completely break. If they were lucky, they could be sent to the sword burial grounds and wait for a 1% chance of recovery. If he was unlucky, he would never be able to awaken again. He would be no different from a piece of scrap metal. Cicada Wings. Although Li Xian's personality and behavior were very unsightly, he did not forget his dignity as a sword wielder when he saw his sword lady in a life and death situation. He quickly hid the Cicada Wing's sword mark in his body and brought out the Flower Shadow sword's sword mark, changing the current battle sword lady to Flower Shadow. This time, Li Xian did not put on his extremely handsome sword unsheathing pose. Instead, he did not say a word of nonsense and immediately summoned Huang. "Flower Shadow, go and attract the demonic beast's attention." Li Xian thought for a moment and added, "Just attract his attention and avoid his skills. Don't ever fight him." "Yes, Li Xian." Huang nodded. She raised her sword and rushed to the demonic beast's side. As expected, she attracted the demonic beast's attention. "Now's your chance." Li Xian saw an opening and quickly ran toward the Cicada Wing sword that had fallen to the ground. Li Xian swore that this was definitely the fastest speed he had ever run in his life. "Cicada Wing, this is great, this is great." Although he stumbled along the way, Li Xian still managed to successfully pick up the Cicada Wing sword. He hugged the Cicada Wing sword tightly in his arms and tightened his grip as if the Cicada Wing sword could leave him at any time. "Teacher Li Xian, be careful." The excited Li Xian suddenly heard his student scream. He turned his head to look and was instantly scared out of his wits. For some reason, the demonic beast's attention had returned to the Cicada Wing. When it saw Li Xian suddenly appear, it casually sent a death claw at him. Even with Gahan's abilities, he could not dodge the demonic beast's death claw in a hurry. Naturally, Li Xian could not dodge it. "Help! Help!" Seeing that he was about to end up like Gahan, Li Xian raised his voice and shouted for help 3 times in a high-pitched voice that he had never heard before, and then there was nothing else. "Sir Dean, there's a report from the building of practical training system. An emergency has occurred in the elementary combat practical training arena. An ancient sword rank student has been seriously injured. In the dean's office of Yuzhong University, the current dean of Yuzhong University, the man known as the Tiger of Yuzhong, Tiger Roar Sword Spirit, was sitting on the dean's throne. Beside him, the dean's secretary was passing him the latest emergency report. It should be mentioned that this secretary was not human, but the dean's own sword mistress. Show the building of practical training's image to the office immediately." In the next second, the environment of the dean's office changed instantly. It looked like elementary combat classroom number 1. The tall demonic beasts, Li Xian, who was trying his best to climb out of the hole in the floor, the panic-stricken students, and Gohan, who was lying on the ground half dead, all appeared in the dean's office. No, it should be said that elementary combat classroom number 1 seemed to have been swapped with the dean's office. Of course, this was impossible. Human technology had not advanced to the point of environmental quantum teleportation. This was only indoor virtual reality technology. This is Yuan Ko. The dean glanced at the demonic beasts and realized that he did not know this Yuan Ko at all. He suddenly felt that things were getting interesting. Long Quan, find me information on this Yuan Ko. Dear friend, this Yuan Ko is called a demonic beast. Long Quan read the information on the demonic beast to the dean. In that case, it's a rare Yuan Ko. Why haven't I heard of it? When did our Yuzhong University capture such a rare Yuan Ko? The dean asked curiously. Dear friend, this demonic beast was not captured by us. It evolved from a small demonic beast we caught previously, Long Quan explained. Evolved? This is a little troublesome. The strength of this demonic beast is probably not something that the teacher in charge of this class can handle. The dean looked at the surrounding students and frowned. His expression immediately turned very ugly. What's wrong with the teacher in charge of this class? Why didn't he evacuate the students when such an accident happened? Doesn't he know that the dimensional crystal pillar in the elementary combat arena can't stop the soul-level Yuan Ko? Where's this teacher? Where is he? Here. Long Quan pointed at Li Xian, who had just climbed up. The teacher in charge of class 22496 is called Li Xian. He's a saber-level sword wielder and has 5 years of teaching experience. In total, he has taught 3 graduating classes, and all of them are above average. However, his reputation isn't very good. More than 2 digits of students have complained about his sexual harassment, but there's no concrete evidence to prove it. Class 22,694? Isn't this the class that was just formed today? This Li Xian has gone mad. He actually released the small demonic beast. Does he think that these little fellas who have only been sword wielder for a few days are a match for the small demonic beast? Nonsense. Lunatic. The headmaster scolded. When this matter is over, expel Li Xian. Our Yuzhong Academy doesn't need idiots like him. Yes, my dear friend. The dean's words determined that Li Xian would never have a good life again. Wait, if it's class 22694. Could it be the class that the little ancestor of the Lun Yin family was assigned to? It was a big deal for Liu Ling to enter Yuzhong University. The dean had personally handled the entire process, which was why he remembered the class number 22694. As expected, the dean scanned the crowd and noticed Liu Ling, who was talking to Gahan. He also noticed the empty bottle in Song Hama's hand. Wu Yue's nano-medical capsule. The dean thought for a moment. Is this student seriously injured? Is it so serious that he needs to be treated with a medical capsule? No. Based on my speculation, a normal medical pod would be able to treat this student's injuries, replied Long Quan. Interesting. The dean snickered. He finally understood why the young mistress of the Lun Yin family would suddenly want to enter Yuzhong University as a student. When he told the news to Yin Jing's black bear, the latter was fuming with rage. He could even hear the sound of things being smashed through the communicator. The descendant of the Liunin family had always been a member of the Yinjing Academy. This was the pride of the Yinjing Academy for the past few hundred years. He did not expect that he would be able to snatch it away from him. This made the dean very happy. Dear friend, I'm afraid that Li Xian's life is in danger. While the dean was paying attention to Liu Ling, the scene had already changed. Li Xian had ordered the flowery shadow sword to attract the demon's attention while he went to rescue Cicada Wing. At least he has some guts. The dean nodded in satisfaction when he saw that Li Xian did not abandon the sword lady and run away. Instead, he risked his life to save his sword lady. But he's still too stupid. Why didn't he ask the spectating students to call the sword ladies to attack the demon? I don't believe that 30 ancient sword ladies can't kill a soul-grade Yuan Ko. Why did he have to act like a hero and go up to the demon? How stupid. Long Quan, who were the closest sword-bearers to the building of practical training, asked them to hurry over and kill this Yuan Ko. We can't afford to lose the students of class 22694. It seems that most of the classes are not in class today. Some are doing missions outside the city. There are not many sword bearers in the school. The closest one is the homeroom teacher of class 22964, Luo Fan. He's 3 minutes away from the scene. If he's any closer, it's probably you, dear friend. I can't show myself. I'm the dean. Such a small matter. The dean was halfway through his sentence when he realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. Li Xian had already been exposed to the demon's claw of death. He would die on the spot in the next second. It's over. I won't make it in time. The dean's mind exploded. If a teacher died in the classroom and was killed by a captured Yuan Ko, then Yuzhong University would become a laughing stock among the 8 schools. Dear friend, someone's making a move. Long Quan cried out. The dean looked over and saw a figure holding a sword in front of Li Xian, blocking the claw of death. That's great. That person from the Liunian family is quite loyal. He's finally making a move. The dean assumed that it was Liunian Ling who had made a move. No, dear friend. The person who made a move is a student called Gahan. Chapter 110. It's you, Li Xian, who was screaming for help on the ground with his eyes closed, knew that even if he did not die, a layer of his skin would be peeled off. However, he did not feel any pain in his body. He opened his eyes and saw a person holding a sword in front of him, blocking the demonic beast's claw of death. Li Xian thought it was a sword maiden, but when he took a closer look, he realized that it was a man. When he looked again, he realized that it was Gahan. Li Xian could not believe his eyes. Gahan had been half dead from the demonic beast's claw of death. Why was he standing in front of him as if nothing had happened? However, that was not the point. The point was, why did Gahan save him? Was he so stupid that he did not realize that Li Xian was targeting him with evil intentions? Why did you save me? Li Xian could not understand and could only ask Gahan embarrassedly. However, Gahan, who was resisting the demonic beast with all his might, did not have the time to answer Li Xian's question. The demon beast was a soul-grade origin puppet. Whether it was in terms of strength or mana, it had reached the level of a soul-grade origin puppet. Using the power of an ancient sword maiden to resist the solid cold was undoubtedly a very difficult task. If one were to observe Gahan's muscles carefully, one would realize that every inch of muscle on his arm was trembling slightly. This was a sign that the strength of his hand had been used to the extreme. Scram! Gahan gritted his teeth as he spat out these words. Logically speaking, Gahan was already fighting with all his might. He only had 110 sword essences. Among the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, only the sword of the abyss and the sword of the formation of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven could barely be used. However, the sword of the abyss required 100 quarks of sword essences. Gahan could not bear to use such a wasteful skill. The sword of the abyss was a footwork for dodging. The more sword essences he put in, the faster Gahan would be and the better the effect of dodging would be. The demonic beast attacks were not precise enough to require Gahan to rely on the sword of the abyss to dodge. Therefore, Gahan could only rely on the most basic swordsmanship to fight the demonic beasts. Li Xian's face turned red when he heard that. He understood the situation he was in. He silently got up from the ground in a sorry state and walked towards the edge of the arena. Huaying, do your best to cooperate with student Gahan in the battle. Li Xian still had some conscience. In the end, he ordered Huaying to stay. Without Li Xian, who was a hindrance, by his side, Gahan had more room to fight. He leaped backward and escaped the disadvantageous situation of competing with the demonic beast in terms of strength. Claw of Death. The demonic beast obviously didn't want to let Gahan leave. Following closely behind Gahan, it swiped at Gahan's back with its claws of death. I was waiting for this move of yours. Gahan suddenly turned around. Qing Pin's sword slashed at the claw of death, deflecting it. This way, the demonic beast's wrist was exposed to Gahan's sword. The demonic beast's claw of death was very strong. It could extend and contract freely and could change its size at will. It could deal with all kinds of enemies. Sword ladies below the level of treasured swords were pitifully few and far between. Those above the level of treasured swords could only rely on brute force to deal with this detestable pair of claws. However, The Claw of Death also had a very obvious weakness, which was its wrist. The larger the Claw of Death became, and the longer it stretched, the smaller the demonic beast's arm became, especially its wrist. In order to grab Gohan, just now, the demonic beast's arm had already stretched more than 10 meters. Its wrist, which was originally as thick as a light disc, had become as thin as a bottle cap. If the demonic beast's arm had not stretched and its wrist was still the same diameter as a light disc, Kingpin's ancient sword-level damage would at most leave a wound on its wrist. However, under Gohan's lure, its wrist had already become as thick as a bottle cap. Great! Gohan mobilized 1/3 of his body, which was 30 quarks of sword essence, and infused it all into the blade of Kingpin's sword. Then he slashed at the wrist that was as thin as a bottle cap. The demonic beast cried out in pain. Its wrist had been uniformly cut off. The Claw of Death, which had become as big as a human, also lost its mana supply and returned to its original size. Damn! The demonic beast let out a groan in pain. The demonic beast let out a muddle-headed sound. His pronunciation was not very accurate, and one could vaguely make out the word abominable. It should not be forgotten that demonic beasts had 2 hands. In its rage, the demonic beast seemed to have forgotten about its right hand. Its left hand once again used the Claw of Death and clawed at Gohan. You refuse to mend your ways. Gohan snorted coldly and leaped up high, narrowly avoiding the Claw of Death. Then, the moment he landed, he adjusted the position of Kingpin's sword and infused it with sword essence. With the help of the gravitational potential energy, he destroyed the demonic beast's left hand, as if he was chopping vegetables. As a result, both of the demonic beast's arms were cut off by Gohan. It had completely lost the terrifying killer move, the Claw of Death. Who is this student? He's so powerful. He actually cut off both of Yuan Ko's arms so easily. Yeah, Teacher Li Xian was clearly bullied so badly. This student is so powerful. Isn't this the student who was fighting with the small demonic beast just now? Wasn't he seriously injured by the demonic beast? Why is he still alive and kicking now? It should be his friend who saved him. It seems that he has a good relationship with A.O. Lin, who owns the Tianwen sword. TSK, you really have a good thigh. No, a beautiful thigh. Come on, you only have the ability to say such sour words. Didn't you see that he is fighting with his own physical body? This means that he is a sword master. At the same level, he is a sword master who can crush you without a doubt. Sword master? The kind of sword wielder who doesn't rely on a sword lady but his own physical body to fight? I heard that only sword masters can perfectly unleash the true power of a sword lady. Those powerful sword masters can all challenge the stronger Yuan Ko. That's right. Last year, Sword Spirit Perplexus successfully killed a universe-level Yuan Ko who was comparable to an immortal sword-tier sword wielder. I heard that Sword Spirit Perplexus is actually a sword master. But Sword Spirit Perplexus can't be considered challenging someone of a higher level. His sword elements have long reached 1 million quarks. Legend has it that he has almost accumulated 2 million quarks, which is more than twice that of an immortal sword-tier sword wielder. However, he hasn't been able to find an immortal sword-tier sword lady who can coordinate with him, so he is stuck at spirit sword tier. Otherwise, we humans would have another powerful immortal sword-tier sword wielder. But the sword lady that Sword Spirit Perplexus uses is a spirit sword-tier sword wielder. If I give you a spirit sword-tier sword wielder and another 5 million sword elements, can you kill a universe-level Yuan Ko? The discussion of the surrounding students gradually deviated to Sword Spirit Perplexus. However, the battle between Gohan and the demonic beast had not ended. The demonic beast, who had lost 2 hands, became even more furious. Its eyes flashed with a red light, and its pair of broken wings began to flap, as if it wanted to fly with its wings that were full of holes. Although he wasn't sure if the demonic beast could fly with its shabby wings, Gohan definitely didn't want to fight in the air. Since he had already cut off both of its arms, Gohan was almost invincible in close combat. Sure enough, the demonic beast, who had lost both hands, didn't have the strength to resist Gohan's close combat. It could only let Gahan's Qingpin sword stab its body, and let the QR codes flow out of the wounds. However, the demonic beast's HP was surprisingly high. In nearly 40 seconds, Gahan had slashed more than 100 times. If it was in the game, it would at least cause more than 1,000 points of damage. The soul level Yuan Ko in the game basically only had around 800 points of HP, at most 1,000 points. Logically speaking, this demonic beast should be dead, but this demonic beast didn't seem to be dying at all. It was worth noting that in these 40 seconds, the demonic beast's eyes became redder and redder, and its wings flapped faster and faster. Not good, not good. A.O. Lin, who was watching from outside the arena, and the dean who was watching the live broadcast in the office changed their expressions almost at the same time. Their sharp senses told them that this demonic beast seemed to be charging up some incredible skill. Not good. Gahan and the Sixth Sense were not much weaker than A.O. Lin and the dean. They immediately gave up on the idea of continuing to cause damage to the demonic beast and instead retreated quickly. He could already feel that this demonic beast was probably about to unleash some terrifying killer move. I remember in the information, the demonic beast had a skill called Razor Wings that could shoot out rays of light and cause shocking damage. Just as Gahan had guessed, the demonic beast was about to unleash Razor Wings. This was the most powerful skill of the demonic beast, and it needed 40 seconds to charge up. This was enough to show how powerful this skill was. The instant Gahan retreated, red spots of light lit up one after another on the demonic beast's wings. In 3 seconds, a total of 50 such spots of light had lit up. Gahan turned his head to take a look, and his heart sank to the extreme. If he had guessed correctly, these 50 spots of light were the firing points of the Razor Wings. When the time came, he was afraid that there would be 50 concentrated rays of light coming at him at the same time. Gahan had guessed correctly again. These 50 red spots of light were indeed the firing points of the 50 rays. Heaven's Inquisition, go and block in front of Gahan. Liu Ling did not hesitate to order Heaven's Inquisition to use her body to block for Gahan. Heaven's Inquisition was the third-ranked Confucian sword lady. Coupled with Liu Ling's rich sword elements, the strength of her personal shield was about 100 times stronger than Gahan's. She would be able to block this wave of death rays without breaking Heaven's Inquisition's personal shield. It's too late. Heaven's Inquisition shook his head because the rays had already been fired. She couldn't block the rays before they hit Gahan. In an instant, these 50 firing points fired at the same time. 50 scarlet death rays were distributed into a dense barrage of about 10 square meters. With such a wide coverage area, it was impossible for Gahan to escape. The demonic beast had silently endured Gahan's 40 seconds of attacks, waiting for this moment. This was also the reason why the sword elements in Gahan's body were too little. If Gahan was the same as the demonic beast, a sword wielder of the same level, then 40 seconds would be enough for Gahan to kill the demonic beast twice. 9 swords of mysterious heaven, sword curtain array. Since he couldn't escape, he could only fight. Chapter 111. He actually won. The dean sat back in his seat, held his forehead, and closed his eyes. He kept recalling Gahan's final battle. Especially against the dense death rays, Gahan was like a great dancer. He constantly spun, twisted, and used some unimaginable moves to dodge 48 of the 50 death rays. Only 2 couldn't be avoided, and they hit Gahan's left arm. The first ray shattered Gahan's personal shield, and the second ray melted half of Gahan's left hand. However, the demonic beast, which had used a powerful skill like Razor Wings, had completely exhausted the magic power in its body. Gahan endured the pain of losing his left hand and used his right hand to hold the sword. Finally, he beheaded the demonic beast. This time it was really dead. The dimensional vortex appeared, and Qingpin sent his neck into the dimensional vortex, sucking the sword essence clean. Then, Gahan fainted. The dean replayed the entire process in his mind a few more times. He smacked his lips and asked Long Quan, Don't you often say that your swordsmanship is the best in swordsmanship? Tell me, that student called Guhan's final evasive maneuver, can you do it or not? Of course. Secretary Long Quan rolled his eyes at the dean. However, that movement technique wasn't a movement technique that was painstakingly trained. It was a movement technique that the sword wielder executed on the spot. I can't do that. I haven't thought of such an exquisite dodging movement in an instant. Especially his left arm, which was hit by 2 rays. It looks like a failure, but it's actually the most ingenious part of his movements. He must have deliberately used his left arm to block the 2 death rays. Otherwise, the other 3 death rays would have passed through his heart, right hand, and reproductive organs. Not only can he do such a move in a life-and-death situation, but his thoughts are also so clear. In terms of strength as a swordsman, I'm afraid I'm inferior to him. TSK, how rare. My Dragon Spring actually admits that his swordsmanship is inferior to someone else's, and it's even a human. How rare. The dean clapped his hands cheerfully. Let me think. The last human who made you admit that you were inferior to him was Huomi, right? Then, Long Quan, tell me, between this Gahan and Huomi, whose swordsmanship is stronger? Long Quan rolled his eyes again. Lord Huomi could defeat this Gahan single-handedly. It's over, it's over. The dean burst into laughter. Long Quan, don't be too modest. Aren't you admitting that you can't even defeat one of Huomi's hands? Boom! Long Quan slammed the document in her hand onto the table. With a stride of her slender legs, she angrily walked out of the dean's office, leaving the helpless dean sitting in his seat. Really, Long Quan is still so easily teased. The headmaster sighed and muttered to himself, can it compare to a single hand of Huomi? That's already insane, all right. I hate to admit it, but in terms of swordsmanship, I can't even compare to Huomi's little finger. I wonder how this child compares to the swordsmanship of the one from Lunyin's family. One from Lunyin's family, one from this child, and one from that fellow's disciple. I can't believe that our Yuzhong University has 3 sword master candidates at the same time. Those sons of the asterisk cheese from Beijing must be fuming. The Octagon tournament is finally the time for our Yuzhong University to make a comeback. Thinking of this, the dean's smile became crooked. He quickly tapped on his personal terminal and dialed a number. Hello, is this the medical center? Have you taken in the student with a broken arm? What? You're not there yet? Let me tell you, this student's arm is more precious than your life. You must guarantee that his newly grown arm is even better than before. Otherwise, all of you will be sent to the beacon tower outside the city to be station doctors. The groggy Gahan opened his eyes and saw himself lying in a medical chamber that looked like a coffin. He was surrounded by an oxygen-rich culture fluid. You're awake. Liu Yinling's voice came into his ears. He did not hear her voice directly, but it was transmitted through the medical chamber's communication interface. The doctor said that to ensure that your arm will grow back perfectly, you must stay in this medical chamber for a full day. In fact, my nanomedical capsules will have the same effect. It'll only take 10 minutes. Fortunately, I didn't use your nanomedical capsules. Gahan curled his lips. 3 million per bottle. I can't afford it. Actually, even if Liu Yinling's capsules were free, Gahan would not eat them. There would always be a slight inconsistency between the arm that was repaired by the nanomedical capsules and the arm that grew out naturally. It might not affect an ordinary person, but for a swordsman like Gahan, a slight inconsistency could destroy the entire sword technique. Therefore, Gahan was very glad that the doctors insisted on using the traditional cultivation method to regenerate his arm. The arm that grew out this way was the most perfect arm. Oh, you think my things are expensive? Then let me tell you some unfortunate news. You now owe the hospital 6 million RMB. Liu Yinling giggled as she revealed the terrifying news that made Gahan's expression change. 6 million. Even with Gahan's composure, he could not help but shiver. Why is it so expensive? Isn't it only 800,000 to repair all 4 limbs? That's normal repair. It's not on the same level as your meticulous repair. Just the formula for the culture fluid alone was discussed by the group of experts for an entire afternoon before they decided on it. According to what they said, your newly grown hands are even more useful than before. They even asked me to ask you if you want to cut off your right hand as well and cultivate it all over again. In any case, it's just a pot of cultivation fluid. It's on the way. Oh, also, when you were unconscious just now, your precious sword maiden said she couldn't stand the hunger anymore. So I went to treat her to a meal of Chanel. I didn't expect your precious sword maiden to have such a big appetite. It can even compete with my dad's great Ravager. She ate more than 100,000 RMB from me. That's on your tab too. Gahan did not say anything. He already did not know what to say. He did some simple calculations. He now owed Lian Ling 3 million RMB, owed the hospital 6 million RMB, and had Qing Pin's little mouth at home. It seemed like his assets had grown to a negative value of around 10 million RMB. After a moment of silence, Lian Ling could not help but ask, "Hey, why aren't you saying anything? Are you still awake?" "Yes." Gohan grunted. "Let me ask you a question. You should be able to tell that Li Xian deliberately used that little demonic beast to mess with you. Although I don't know what grudges there are between the two of you. You could have attacked later or not attacked at all. Li Xian would have been digging his own grave. It had nothing to do with you. Why did you save him? I don't care what happened to Li Xian. I just don't want to see the cicada sword broken." Gohan paused and sank into his memories. The two of us went to the sword burial grounds together. The desert was filled with broken swords. Don't you think it's very pitiful and despairing? Then there's another question. Did you already know the body movement technique that you used at the end, or did you think it up on the spot? In fact, Lian Ling was most curious about Gohan's body movement technique. Her first impression was that Gohan had made it up. However, even if Lian Ling was beaten to death, she would not believe that Gohan had made up such an exquisite body movement technique on the spot. "I made it up on my own," Gohan said dryly. Logically speaking, this body movement technique could not be considered as something that Gohan had thought up on the spot. This was because this body movement technique was based on the 9 swords of mysterious heavens formation, the sword formation curtain. However, it could also be considered as something that Gohan had thought up on the spot. This was because the sword formation curtain did not have a specific body movement technique. It only had 386 basic movements. One had to continuously use these 386 movements according to actual needs. To a certain extent, it was no different from something that Gohan had created himself. Lian Ling's question involved Gohan's most secretive 9 swords, a mysterious heaven. Therefore, Gohan did not want to answer Lian Ling's question at all. Hence, he answered that he had made it up and shut his mouth. There was another long silence. "All right, I don't think you want to hear my voice, so I'm going home. You can rest here. Homeroom teacher, that guy called Luo something came by just now. He wanted me to tell you that the next class will be in 5 days. After saying this, Lian Ling strode out of the ward. The sound of her footsteps was so loud that Gohan could hear even from the medical bay. "My lord, did you quarrel with your girlfriend?" Suddenly, a female voice came out of curiosity and said something that made Gohan feel extremely awkward. "Sir, your girlfriend is so nice. Not only did she treat your sword lady to a meal, she even stayed here to watch over you for 5 hours. Apart from eating, she didn't leave the room even once. You should say more nice things to her. Say sweet nothings to her. Don't girls need to be coaxed? Who are you?" After a long time, Gohan squeezed out these words. "I'm your personal nurse, Shout Song." So the owner of the voice was Gohan's personal nurse. However, don't get the wrong idea. A personal nurse was different from a personal maid. "Where's my Qing Pin? My sword lady?" Gohan decided to change the topic. He really wanted to know how Qing Pin was doing now. "Oh, you might not be able to see it. Your sword lady is lying on top of your medical bay. She's already asleep." Gohan raised his head to take a look. Sure enough, there was a lump of black stuff pressing against the roof of his medical pod. No wonder he could not see what was happening outside no matter how hard he tried. This pitiful, adorable thing. Chapter 112. While Gohan was unconscious, The dungeon's entry ban had quietly passed. It was boring to stay in the medical pod anyway, so he might as well enter the game to kill time. Fortunately, Gahan's left hand was broken, and his right hand was not disabled. Otherwise, Gahan would not even be able to enter the game through his personal terminal. The last time he quit the game, he was forced to quit the game and did not even receive the dungeon completion reward. Fortunately, the Sword Maiden Online reward would not disappear with the disconnection, but remained in the Dungeon Settlement Center. So when Gahan logged into the game this time, he appeared in the Dungeon Settlement Center. This time, the theme of the Dungeon Settlement Center was Antarctica. After Gahan logged in and opened his eyes, he saw a vast expanse of white ice and snow land, groups of penguins walking in the ice and snow. What was still a little out of place were the two sets of snow-white sofas and glass coffee tables beside Gahan, as well as the black stocking office lady sitting on one of the sofas waiting for him. "Hello, Cashier 0791, at your service." Sitting on the sofa was a beautiful office lady wearing a dark blue business suit and shining black stockings. She was actually the Cashier 079, one he met last time. "Hello, respected player military governor, we meet again. Your dungeon, Wudong's Best, has completed the data statistics. Do you want to start settlement? You can also choose to enjoy the scenery here. Our settlement center's theme today is Antarctic Diary." Seeing that Gahan had already sat on the sofa, Cashier 0791 took the initiative to ask, "Yes, what a coincidence." Gahan looked deeply at 0791. There was definitely something fishy about this woman. "There's no need for that. Let's start the settlement." "Understood. Beginning settlement. Main Quest 1 completed. Main Quest 2 completed. Main Quest 4 completed. Total time taken: 5 hours, 26 minutes, 17 seconds. Warning. Warning. Main Quest 4 follow-up status anomaly. Main Quest 4 follow-up status anomaly. Anomaly code 000023. Anomaly level S. Area Intelligent Processing Server Authority level is lower than the anomaly level. Reporting to Core Intelligent Processing Server. Please wait patiently. Estimated processing time: 5 minutes. F*CK. Again? When Gahan heard this familiar alarm, he immediately became unhappy. It was the same with Yuking Gojin Jian last time. In the end, some stupid GM popped out and erased his Yuking Gojin Jian out of thin air. What does he want this time? Erase all of my rewards? Sorry to keep you waiting. A few minutes later, the lifeless 0791 regained its vitality. It seemed to be even more energetic than before. "Don't tell me you're possessed by the system coordinator again?" Gahan looked at 0791 suspiciously. "If you dare to touch my reward again, I will go to the Sword Committee to lodge a complaint against your department. I'm a true sword wielder now. Dear military governor, you've misunderstood. We did not disturb the system coordinator. After a data analysis, we found that your behavior in the game is normal. All of your rewards are your legitimate earnings. We have no right to punish you for your rewards." 0791's words put Gahan at ease. Anomaly processing complete. It has been confirmed that player military governor has triggered the dungeon's Easter egg. Completing the Easter egg mission and persevering until reinforcements arrive, you will receive the reward of quintuple the dungeon's reward. 0791 announced the results of the system processing. May I ask, quintuple the dungeon's reward, does it mean that all of the rewards I should have received will be quintuple? Gahan was a little excited. If it was true, he would have made a huge profit from this dungeon, because this was his first dungeon to achieve an SSS grade reward. He already enjoyed a 100 times reward. If it was quintuple, he would receive a total of 500 times reward. That would be enough to make Gahan die of happiness. What was even better was that if the egg twister reward was included, it would mean that Gahan had obtained 50 twister eggs at the same time. That was going to be awesome. Yes, all of the rewards you receive will be doubled. 0791 confirmed. Including the egg twister reward? Gahan asked. He had to confirm the egg twister. Yes, including the egg twister reward. 0791 nodded very honestly. Gahan instantly felt that the pain of losing an arm and owing a debt of 10 million had disappeared quite a bit. If the purple twister egg this time turned out to be an exquisite item, the debt of 10 million would instantly turn into a profit of 10 million. May I ask if you have any other questions? If not, 0791 will start the dungeon's overall battle score evaluation. That's all. You can start the evaluation. Guhan shook his head. Everything was good. There was nothing else that could be better. Starting battle score evaluation. Main quest completed. Side quest completed. Total time spent. 5 hours, 26 minutes, 17 seconds. Number of dead NPCs. 2. Your dungeon's overall rating. SSS. Unfortunately, the original record for the number of dead NPCs for Wudong Peak is 0. You did not break the dungeon's record. You were unable to obtain the title of Wudong Peak's number 1. Your name will not be able to spread throughout the world. Congratulations, you have completed and triggered the Wudong Peak main storyline Easter egg, becoming the first player to complete an SSS grade Easter egg. Your name will spread throughout the world. Ding dong, system prompt. Broadcast to all channels. Player Military Governor has triggered the Wudong Peak main storyline Easter egg and completed the Easter egg with an SSS grade Easter egg. Let me congratulate Player Military Governor for creating a new record. Ding dong, system prompt. Broadcast to all channels. Player Military Governor has triggered the Wudong Peak main storyline Easter egg and completed the Easter egg with an SSS grade Easter egg. Let me congratulate Player Military Governor for creating a new record. Ding dong. System prompt. Broadcast to all channels. Player Military Governor has triggered the Wudong Peak main storyline Easter egg and completed the Easter egg with an SSS grade Easter egg. Let me congratulate Player Military Governor for creating a new record. Hearing such a system broadcast, the game world and the forum erupted again. Just what kind of character was this military governor? He actually completed the dungeon with an SSS grade Easter egg and even triggered a F** King Easter egg. Emperor Sword of Ether above. What other Easter eggs were there in the Wudong Peak dungeon? How come I've never heard of it? As a result, a large number of posts began to crazily flood the forum. The SSS level mission rating was secondary. The important thing was, what the hell was this main storyline Easter egg? How was it supposed to be triggered? Of course, the in-game Gahan had no way of knowing this. He was sitting on the sofa in Antarctica, waiting for 0791 to give him his reward. Player Military Governor, your dungeon reward will be issued now. First, the basic reward for completing the dungeon. RMB, 2 yuan, 2 essence sword pills, 2 sword scar dust. Player Military Governor, this is your first time clearing the Wudong Peak dungeon. You will enjoy the benefits of double the reward for clearing the first time. Your overall rating for clearing the first time is SSS grade. According to the rules, you can enjoy 100 times the basic reward. Player Military Governor, because you have completed the Easter egg for the Wudong Peak main storyline. Your reward will be multiplied by 5 times. Player Military Governor, your final dungeon reward is RMB, 1,000 yuan, 1,000 essence sword pills, 1,000 sword scar dust. Please continue to work hard and reach a new high. As soon as 0791's voice fell, all 3 elements of the dungeon appeared on the table. Gohan gathered them together and piled them up into a magnificent hill. 1,000 yuan was nothing compared to Gahan, who owed him 10 million yuan. However, 1,000 essence sword pills and sword scar dust was a huge fortune. After Guhan ate the 1,000 essence sword pills, the amount of essence sword in the game immediately exceeded 1,000. Guhan also became a sword wielder of the treasure sword level in the game. Less than 5 days had passed since Guhan had entered the game. In these 5 days, Guhan had gone from an ancient sword rank swordsman to a treasured sword rank swordsman. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many tycoons in the game who relied on essence sword pills to break through to sword wielder within 3 days, Gohan Speed would definitely be among the top 10 fastest players to break through from ancient sword to sword wielder since the start of Sword Maiden Online. Then there were 1,000 sword scar dust. 5 sword scar dust could raise an ancient sword wielder's level from level 9 to level 8. It could also be combined into 1 sword scar crystal dust. 5 sword scar crystal dust could raise an ancient sword wielder's level from level 8 to level 7. In other words, every time a sword wielder advanced a level, it would require 5 times the amount of sword scar dust. After some calculations, 1,000 sword scar dust would be enough to raise Qingpin to level 5. Not only would it increase Qingpin's overall stats, but it would also activate Qingpin's passive skills. Once he had digested all these rewards, regardless of the sword technique bonus, Gohan's strength in the game would increase by more than 10 times. After a brief moment of excitement, the familiar toy capsule machine appeared on the table again. This was the reward that Gohan had been eagerly anticipating. Compared to 1,000 copies of the dungeon's 3 elements, the toy capsule machine's reward was much more exciting, and it could possibly give a bigger reward. Chapter 113. Congratulations to player Military Governor. This is your first time clearing the dungeon. You have obtained an SSS rating. You will enjoy a 10 times chance of twisting the egg 9 times. You have obtained an F rating. You may begin twisting the egg once. 0791 pointed at the toy capsule machine with an expressionless face, indicating for Gohan to twist it. I'll twist it. Gohan pressed the button on the toy capsule machine. The inside of the machine began to jump wildly. A white egg rolled out of the machine. Just like the previous time, the first one to come out was a white egg. Congratulations to player Military Governor. You have obtained a white egg. You have obtained a 1 renminbi from twisting the egg. Gohan curled his lips in dissatisfaction. Damn it, even the reward is the same as the previous one, a 1 renminbi. Gohan originally thought that his first opportunity to twist the egg had been wasted. Just as he was about to twist the egg a second time, 0791 spoke up. Player Military Governor, because you have completed the main storyline Easter egg, you have triggered a 5 times reward. You may choose one of the following options to double the reward for the toy capsule machine. Option 1. You may choose to increase the reward by 5 times. Option 2. You may choose to reset the reward for twisting the egg until you get the reward you want, or until the 5 chances disappear. Please note, once you have chosen any of the options, this option will apply throughout the entire process of twisting the egg. It cannot be changed again. After hearing 0791's words, Gohan fell into deep thought. 0701's words sounded complicated, but it was actually very easy to understand. For example, if Gohan chose the first option, then Gohan's reward would be increased by 5 times, which would be 5 renminbi. If Gohan chose the second option, then Gohan could toss the 1 renminbi back into the machine and twist another white egg. This way, he might be able to obtain a different reward. Once Gohan chose one of the options, then the same rule would apply for the next 8 times he twisted the egg. There was no way to change it. Logically speaking, it was very difficult for Gohan to choose between these 2 options. The options kept multiplying by 5, and it was very beautiful. This was especially so for the last egg. The worst was a purple egg, and the reward inside would not be less than 1,000 RMB. If he could get a famed sword Greatsword Maiden and get 5 times the reward, Gohan's net worth would break 100 million RMB. The word awesome couldn't even describe it. However, if something like a sword scar crystal came out, even if it was multiplied by 5 times, it would only be a sword scar crystal, which would only sell for 5,000 renminbi at the auction house. In this way, the benefits of the second option could be seen. What goes sword scar crystal? No, give it to me. This is a total of 5 exchanges. Who knows? Maybe in these 5 exchanges, a famed sword lady will appear, crushing the sword scar crystal by tens of thousands of times. Gohan kept struggling between these 2 options. If the first option was a piece of trash, what would be the point of paying 5 times the price? As for the second option, what if a top-grade item appeared on the first try? Wouldn't that be a loss of 4 top-grade items? Gohan pondered for a long time, but could not make up his mind. After waiting for 5 minutes, and seeing that Gahan had not made a decision, 0791 impatiently urged, "Player Gahan, you have 10 seconds to make your choice. Otherwise, the system will default to the second option." "What? Your default to the second option?" Guhan's eyes lit up, and he slammed the table. "All right, I'll choose the first option." The smile on 0791's face froze, and he did not speak for a long time. His plump chest heaved up and down for a while, and he reluctantly curved his mouth. "Understood. Player Gahan has chosen the first option, and the reward is multiplied by 5 times. You have received a reward of 5 RMB. Please draw the second egg twister." Seeing 0791's twisted expression, Gahan could not help but wonder if this guy was purposely controlling the toy egg machine to give him some trash. Gahan pressed the button suspiciously, and the white toy egg popped out again. When he opened it, it was still 1 RMB. Now that it had been multiplied by 5 times, it was another 5 RMB. It was not even enough to buy a small piece of Qingping's flesh. Continue. Gahan was not the type of person to regret, because regret would not have any effect. Gahan pressed the button for the 3rd time. This time it was not a white toy egg, but a blue one. "Congratulations to player Military Governor. You have obtained a blue toy egg. You have twisted out a portion of Baitiejin shampoo. Because the reward has been doubled, you have obtained 5 portions of Baitiejin shampoo." When 0791 reported the reward, his voice seemed to be filled with a sense of satisfaction. Actually, for a blue toy egg, twisting out an ancient sword maiden's token was quite a good reward. However, this token could not be one of the 3 basic sword maidens like by Taijian. This kind of sword maiden, which was given as a gift upon entering the game, would be sold for 10 RMB in an auction house. Guhan vaguely remembered that the last time he twisted an egg, he had also twisted out something like this. Altogether, Gahan had collected 6 tokens. With 4 more, Gahan could go to Sword Pavilion and find Bai Taijian to coordinate with him. The prerequisite was that Gahan was willing to give up on Qingpin. Of course, this was impossible. After the 4th and 5th time, the remaining 2 white eggs came out. They each gave 3 portions of sword scar powder and 10 renminbi. Gahan did not care about the white egg reward at all. After all, it was trash, and even if it was multiplied by 100 times, it would only be a red and purple one. The next twist egg was the key. At this time, it was already the 6th time. All the white eggs had been twisted out, leaving only 2 blue, 2 purple, and 1 gold. Guhan secretly hoped that the purple twisted egg would have good luck inside. "Congratulations to player Military Governor. You have obtained a blue toy egg. You have twisted out 1 portion of Baitiejin shampoo. Because the reward has been doubled, you have obtained 5 portions of Baitiejin shampoo." 0791 revealed a devilish smile when he reported the reward. "What the hell is this?" Gahan almost slapped the toy egg onto the table. "Young man, what happened to being calm and not regretful?" Guhan's lips trembled in anger. Second, he actually gave Bai Tiejin's token back. Was he urging Gahan to replace Qingpin? Again, Guhan pressed the button for the 7th time, and there was 1 blue, 2 purple, and 1 gold capsule left in the capsule. Logically speaking, under the system's secret operation, there was a 99% chance that the blue egg would appear. In the end, the machine actually spun, and a purple egg popped out. Gahan was not excited. Even if it was blue this time, it would definitely be purple the next time. The system was just giving the purple to Gahan in advance. However, Gahan's hands were still trembling. He did not know what reward this purple egg would give him. There was nothing to dawdle about. Guhan nimbly twisted open the purple egg. "Congratulations to player Military Governor. You have obtained a purple egg. You have twisted out 1 portion of the Heavenly Sword's secret manual. Because the reward has been doubled, you have obtained 5 portions of the Heavenly Sword's secret manual." 0791's voice instantly became dry. "Very good, let's continue." Gahan looked very calm as he stuffed the 5 portions of the Heavenly Sword's secret manual into his dimensional pocket. However, the bulging artery on his wrist betrayed him. This was a total of 5 portions of the Heavenly Sword's secret manual. In addition to the 4 portions he already had, he had 9 portions. As long as he obtained one more portion, Gahan would be able to collect all of the Heavenly Sword's tokens. Moreover, Gahan's sword essence in the game had already broken through the limit of a treasured sword wielder. It had broken through 1,000 quarks of sword essence. He was only one step away from the strongest treasured sword, the Heavenly Sword. More importantly, once he obtained the Heavenly Sword in the game, Gahan would have the right to apply for the right to synchronize with the Heavenly Sword in the real world. The ancient sword wielder had no requirements for mortals. As long as one was interested, they could touch it. However, the treasured sword wielder and above were different. The sword engraving ceremony for the treasured sword wielder had to be held separately. In other words, every time a treasured sword wielder was synchronized, a sword engraving ceremony had to be held. Moreover, the materials required for the treasured sword wielder were 10 times more expensive than those for the ancient sword wielder. Moreover, different sword engraving ceremonies required different resources. For example, the number 1 treasured sword wielder, the Heavenly Sword's sword engraving ceremony required more than 20 times more resources than the ordinary treasured sword wielder. As a result, the amount of resources required was astronomical. The Sword Committee couldn't bear the cost for every ancient sword wielder to synchronize with every treasured sword wielder and carry out the sword engraving ceremony again and again. Before the appearance of Sword Lady Online, the sword wielder was required to provide the resources required for the sword engraving ceremony. The Sword Committee wouldn't bear the cost. However, the success rate was very low. Many ancient sword wielder spent their entire lives accumulating resources and searching for a treasured sword wielder who could synchronize with them. When Sword Lady Online appeared, the situation changed. Ancient sword wielder could try to synchronize with a sword wielder in the game. Once the synchronization was successful in the game, the success rate would stabilize at around 8%. This was more than 100 times more accurate than the previous headless search. Seeing that the situation had changed for the better, the Sword Committee readily changed the rules. First, the sword wielder could provide the resources for the sword engraving ceremony and synchronize with the sword wielder they wanted. Second, if the sword wielder could synchronize with a sword wielder in-game, the Sword Committee would bear the cost of the sword engraving ceremony. If Guhan were to provide his own resources to synchronize with the Heavenly Sword experiments, he would probably need to spend more than 40 million renminbi in order to purchase it. However, if he managed to gather all the tokens in the game and successfully synchronize them with the Heavenly Sword, the Sword Committee would be the one to cover the cost. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Chapter 114. Gahan, who had obtained 5 Heavenly Sword skill fragments, calmed down after his initial ecstasy. To be able to obtain 5 token fragments, Gahan felt that it was worth it. Even if the rest were all trash, it was not a big deal. It was unknown if anyone had experienced this before. The more one held onto hope and anticipation, the more excited one was to do something, the more one would end up with the opposite result. If one did not hold on to any hope and acted with an ordinary heart, one would be unexpectedly satisfied. Gahan used an ordinary heart to twist out his 8th twister egg. Thus, Gahan, who was much calmer than before, twisted out a golden twister egg. That was right, it was the most difficult golden twister egg to twist out. Other players would not be able to twist out even one golden twister egg in their entire lives. However, Gahan had twisted out a second one. Ding dong. System prompt. Broadcast to all channels. The Europeans are here. Player military governor has for the first time twisted out a golden twister egg during the instance dungeons evaluation round. Truly, comparisons are odious. Ding dong. System prompt. Broadcast to all channels. The Europeans are here. Player military governor has for the first time twisted out a golden twister egg during the instance dungeons evaluation round. Truly, comparisons are odious. Ding dong. System prompt. Broadcast to all channels. The Europeans are here. Player military governor has for the first time twisted out a golden twister egg during the instance dungeons evaluation round. Truly, comparisons are odious. Congratulations to player military governor. You have obtained a golden twister egg. From it, You have obtained a bottle of Blue Sword Essence Oral Solution. Due to the doubling of the reward, you have obtained 5 bottles of Blue Sword Essence Oral Solution. 0791's tone became cheerful. Sword Essence Oral Solution, Blue, untradeable, unbound. Effect, permanently increase 200 Sword Essence points after consumption. Usage restriction, no restrictions. It's actually this thing. Gohan was somewhat disappointed when he saw the Sword Essence Oral Solution. There were a total of 1,000 Sword Essence points, which was also what a prize sword class sword wielder needed. But to Gohan, who already had 1,000 Essence Sword pills, it was of little value. After consuming these 5 bottles, he was still 8,000 points away from becoming a famed sword wielder. It was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Moreover, Gohan only needed to clear a few more SSS-rated dungeons for the first time with 1,000 quartz game sword element. Compared to the precious golden twisted egg, it was like comparing a goose feather to Mount Tai. Why would there be such a thing in the golden egg? Didn't they say that this oral fluid could only be obtained during the swordsmanship tournament of the 8 cities? Gohan asked 0791 unwillingly. Player Military Governor, the golden egg contains all the items that exist in the game. Even if it is an event-limited item, you can obtain it from the golden egg. 0791 replied formally. Sure enough, the Taoists were right. Things like luck always decline after it reaches its peak. It's like tearing down the east wall to repair the west wall. Since I've already obtained 5 copies of the Heavenly Sword Secret Manual, I can't expect the golden egg to give me anything good. Gohan shook his head and tossed the 5 bottles of Essence Sword oral fluid beside the pile of basic rewards. Then, he pressed on the last chance to twist the egg. Congratulations to Player Military Governor. You've obtained a blue reward. You've obtained a bottle of Treasure Sword Grade, Dew of Cherishing Fate. Because the reward has been doubled, you've obtained 5 bottles of Treasure Sword Grade, Dew of Cherishing Fate. Dew of Cherishing Fate, Treasure Sword Grade. Tradable, droppable, unbound. Effect. After consumption, the sword mark between the Treasure Sword Grade Sword Maiden and the sword wielder can be removed. Sword element permanently decreases by 1,000 quarks. Usage restriction. No restrictions. It's useless, but it can be sold for tens of thousands of RMB. The Dew of Cherishing Fate was an item that could remove the sword mark between the sword maiden and the sword wielder. Its function was similar to Green Silk Slash, but its value was far lower. Green Silk Slash could perfectly remove all sword marks. After consumption, the sword wielder could synchronize with any sword maiden they wanted without any side effects. However, the Dew of Cherishing Fate was different. It could only remove the sword mark of a sword maiden of a certain level. Moreover, after removing it, the player could only synchronize with a sword maiden of the same level. It was equivalent to switching to a new sword maiden of the same level. Moreover, there was the side effect of permanently decreasing 1,000 quarks sword element. Hence, unless one was extremely dissatisfied with their own sword maiden and urgently wanted to switch to a new one, most players would not be interested in consuming the Dew of Cherishing Fate. Although the production rate of the Dew of Cherishing Fate was very low, the usage rate was also very low. The price of the Dew of Cherishing Fate in the auction house had always been maintained between 10,000 to 20,000 renminbi. This was also the price of the Treasure Sword Grade, Dew of Cherishing Fate. The Dew of Cherishing Fate, of Cherishing Fate, of Cherishing Fate, of Famed Sword and Spirit Sword had already fallen below 10,000 renminbi. Those high-level players did not have the time or desire to find a brand new sword maiden that could synchronize with them successfully. However, the fact that a blue egg could produce a Dew of Cherishing Fate was already extremely lucky. Generally speaking, the main source of the Dew of Cherishing Fate was the purple egg. After twisting the last egg, there were no other rewards left to claim. Gohan tidied up the items in his bosom and placed them into his dimensional pocket. He gave 0791 a heads up and planned to leave the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center. Player Military Governor, you still have unclaimed rewards. Just as Gohan was about to retreat, he suddenly heard 0791 say this? There's still a reward? Gahan was a little confused. He had already claimed the basic reward, the toy egg machine reward, and the dungeon's Easter egg reward. What other reward was there that he had yet to claim? Player Gahan, you have completed the Wudong's Absolute Peak side quest. Search for the 3 missing survivors. You will receive a reward that has been upgraded by 1 grade. Gohan recalled that in the Wudong's Absolute Peak dungeon, there were indeed 3 missions to search for missing NPCs. One was Wang Dachui, who wanted to have a good time in the face of death. One was Chun Xiaochue, who wanted to see the sunrise before leaving. And one was the old Taoist who was kicked off the cliff by Gahan. This side quest did indeed have such a reward. What does it mean by a reward that has been upgraded? Gohan asked 0791. It means that among the rewards that you have previously received, you will be able to draw one out and upgrade it by 1 grade. For example, the basic reward of 2 renminbi that you obtain from the basic reward will be upgraded by 1 grade, becoming a basic reward of 10 renminbi. Another example, the normal Essence Sword Pill that you obtain will be upgraded to the Refined Essence Sword Pill that increases Essence Sword by 5 points. Another example, the Treasure Sword grade Dew of Cherishing Fate that you obtain from the Toy Egg will be upgraded to the Famed Sword grade Dew of Cherishing Fate. Wow, this reward is awesome. Gohan exclaimed in admiration and continued to ask, can this upgrade be stacked with the 5 times increase from the Ancestral Easter Egg and the 100 times increase from the first dungeon's SSS grade evaluation? Of course. All the reward upgrades will be stacked together. Please rest assured. 0791's confirmation made Gohan burst with joy. The system was too kind. He never would have thought that there would be such a good thing. If this reward was used on the Essence Sword Pill, then wouldn't his Essence Sword that increased by 1,000 quarks directly jump to 5,000 quarks? In addition to the 1,000 quarks from the Essence Sword Oral Solution, he would be more than halfway to the famed sword grade. Can I choose which reward I want to upgrade? Gohan continued to push his luck. No, the system will randomly draw a reward to be upgraded. Player Military Governor is unable to choose on his own. Oh, Gahan made no sound and did not think too much about it. Even if he did not upgrade it to the Essence Sword Pill, it could be upgraded to RMB, Sword Scar Dust, or other rewards. In short, there would be no harm in upgrading a reward by 1 level. Player Military Governor, would you like to upgrade a reward by 1 level? 0791 asked for a final confirmation. Yes, Gohan confirmed. The system has started a random selection. The results will be announced in 10 seconds to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When 0791 was counting down, Gahan finally had time to calm down and think about what had just happened. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that something was not right. It seemed that something like upgrading a reward by 1 level might not be completely without harm. If it was that thing that was upgraded, then he would have really suffered a huge loss. After understanding this, Gohan shuddered and immediately changed his words. He shouted to 0791, I don't want it anymore. I don't want this upgrade reward anymore. If you want to cancel it, I want to cancel it. 0791 finished the countdown and revealed his bright teeth and smile. You have confirmed it, Player Military Governor. Chapter 115. Player Military Governor. Your reward level has been upgraded. The reward has been upgraded to Treasure Sword Grade Heavenly Sword Secret Manuals. The reward after upgrade is Famous Sword Grade Juzi Sword Mechanical Birds. I wish you a happy game. Things had indeed developed in the worst possible direction. Just as Gohan was thinking about whether this reward would be used on the secret manual of the Heaven Reliant Sword, 0791 notified him that it had already been used up. The secret manual of the Heaven Reliant Sword had become the mechanical bird of the Juzi Sword. This was the legendary saying of heaven and hell with a single thought. Some people didn't understand. Raising the Sword Maiden's keepsake from the Treasure Sword grade to the Famed Sword grade, you made a huge profit. Although you won't be able to use it for a while, you can use it when you collect Famed Swords in the future. Famed Swords are definitely worth more than Treasure Swords, right? This was a big mistake. How could a famous sword record ranked in the hundreds compare to the treasure sword record's number one? The simplest example was Ming Yue's Sunset Sword. A set of tokens was sold at the auction house for 3 million. This Sunset Sword was even ranked in the top 100 famous swords. But a set of heavenly sword? You couldn't buy it even if you wanted to. That was why when Gu Han heard that his heavenly sword had been replaced by the Juzi sword, a famous sword that he had never heard of before. Perhaps it was a famous sword that was ranked in the hundreds. He almost went to file a complaint to 0791. Wait, no, I've never heard of the Juzi sword before. Gu Han desperately searched his memory, but no matter what, he couldn't find any information related to the Juzi sword. Even the Qingpin sword, Gu Han had seen a few players mention it in the forum. This was the Juzi sword, but it was a completely unfamiliar name. Gu Han was at least sure that the Juzi sword was not among the 1,024 famous swords in the famous sword record. This was a little interesting. Why would such a sword suddenly appear in Sword Maiden Online? What was the origin of this Juzi sword? Gu Han wanted to ask 0791 about the origin of this Juzi sword, but when he raised his head, he found that the sofa opposite him was already empty. 0791 was nowhere to be seen. System notification. Player military governor, your settlement has ended. You will leave the settlement center in 30 seconds. You are welcome to come down again. After exiting the settlement center, Gu Han returned to his sword tomb. Although he hadn't logged in for almost 3 days, the simple house was still spotless. Wasn't this obvious? How could the game world be covered in dust? With the Juzi sword in mind, Gu Han landed and went straight to the computer in the sword tomb. He began searching for information related to the Juzi sword on the internet. Although this was a computer in a game, its actual functions were no different from a computer in reality. You could even use the computer in the world of Sword Maiden Online to play League of Legends. This game from more than 1,000 years ago was still popular even now. Gu Han sat in front of the computer for 3 hours and searched through millions of words of information. He couldn't say that there was none, but it was extremely limited. First of all, if he used Juzi sword as a keyword search, Gu Han did not find any information. Even if he found a hacker in the group and asked him to use his own special search tool, he did not find anything. His search tool was able to break through the seal set by the council as an S-class secret and read the confidential information. Since this software could not be found, it meant that either there was no information about the Juzi sword on the internet, or the Juzi sword's confidentiality level was above SS. No matter which answer it was something that Gu Han could not deal with at the moment. Thus, Gu Han took a step back and used Juzi as a keyword to search for information. This time, Gu Han finally found something. Juzi, also known as Juzi or Juzi, is the title given to the leader of the school of Moism in the 100 Schools of Thought. Those who are able to become Juzi are all top-notch masters who are highly skilled in martial arts, have profound wisdom, and are proficient in the school of Moism. The 100 Schools of Thought had appeared during the transition between the primordial era and the medieval era. Legend had it that every single one of the 100 Schools of Thought had the ability to turn the world upside down and transcend the mortal world. However, in the near ancient era, the strength of the 100 Schools of Thought had gradually declined, and in the end, they were no different from ordinary people. In the Middle Ages, the first Juzi was the founder of the school of Moism, M-O-D, also known as Mozi. Among the 100 Schools of Thought, the school of Moism was the most tightly organized, and its actions were the most systematic. When it entered the imperial court, it was a powerful school that could do whatever it wanted. At the same time, the school of Moism also had strong hands-on abilities. Legend had it that in the Middle Ages, they were able to create wooden oxen that ran on the ground, wooden birds that flew in the sky, and wooden whales that swam in the water. Almost all of the disciples of the school of Moism were outstanding carpenters and inventors. If the school of Moism hadn't declined during the end of the Qin dynasty and the beginning of the Han dynasty, and then been crushed and vilified by the Confucians until they disappeared, perhaps during the Middle Ages, China would have been able to enter the steam era before Europe. There were rumors that after the school of Moism's influence in the light was destroyed by the Confucians, They moved into the shadows and changed their name, becoming a martial arts sect in the pugilistic world, the Demon Sect. The strength of the Demon Sect was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. When it was strong, it could sweep through the world, giving birth to unparalleled heroes like Wu Zetian and Zhu Yuanzhang. When it was weak, it could also cause chaos in the world, like Zhu Wan and the White Lotus Society. However, all the emperors that used the Demon Sect to ascend to the supreme throne would all turn around and kill the Demon Sect without exception. I don't know if they were afraid that after they died, their descendants wouldn't be able to control this organization. All in all, the school of Moism was powerful, and Juzi's status was supreme. Then what about the Juzi sword? Could this Juzi sword be the sword of the school of Moism's Juzi? If it was, how strong was this sword? How was it compared to King Yu? Gahan thought about these questions, but he didn't have enough information. There was no evidence or battle records that could be used to deduce the Juzi sword strength. Thinking of King Yu, Gohan realized that this lady was still in the scabbard and hadn't been released by him. Gohan opened the sword lady's stats interface. King Yu's data was still red, and the 1% durability didn't change at all. Gohan frowned. Under normal circumstances, after returning to the scabbard to rest for a while, the sword lady should have recovered from 1% durability to full. However, 3 days passed, and King Yu's situation didn't change at all. This meant that under Zayuneta's Dragon Flame attack, King Yu had injured his foundation to the point that he couldn't rely on the scabbard to recover. He had to find a sword blacksmith to recover. As the name suggested, sword blacksmith was a job that forged sword ladies. Together with sword wielder, they were the only 2 jobs in Sword Lady Online. However, there weren't many players who played sword blacksmith because sword blacksmiths couldn't enjoy exciting battles, nor could they have sword ladies with the same sword marks. That was why sword blacksmiths were very rare in Sword Lady Online. Powerful sword blacksmiths were even rarer. However, powerful sword blacksmiths were even more respected than sword wielder of the same level. For example, a famed sword blacksmith would definitely be much more popular than a famed sword wielder, and would be worth a lot more as well. A famed sword-level swordsmith could earn the same amount of money that a famed sword-level swordsman could earn in a few months in a single day. It was the same in reality. Or rather, sword blacksmiths in reality were rarer and more precious than sword blacksmiths in the game. This was because there were more than 200,000 sword wielder in the world, and more than 200,000 artificial sword ladies in their hands were created by these sword blacksmiths. Without sword blacksmiths forging artificial sword ladies, humans might not have been able to hold out during the Alps War and fall to Yuan Ko's wave after wave of attacks. In Yuzhong City, there was a street called Sword Dragon Spring Road. Whether famous or not, swordsmiths in Yuzhong City would set up shops or stalls on this street to sell the artificial sword maidens they had forged. Gohan was currently strolling along Longquan Street. On both sides of the street were standard shops that were about 20 square meters in size. These shops were opened by slightly famous sword blacksmiths. As the rent for these shops was not cheap, it was impossible for them to afford renting these shops if they could not create good sword ladies and sell them for a good price. Outside the shop, there was a row of small stalls, and on the stalls were some artificial sword maidens. The quality and workmanship of the sword maidens gave off a very bad feeling. The owners of these stalls were basically new sword blacksmiths. A small number of them were old sword blacksmiths who had no talent and could not forge good sword ladies. They could not afford to rent shops, so they could only set up stalls on both sides of the street and sell their artificial sword ladies to sword wielder who did not have much money, or if they were lucky, they could trick a fool. Guhan looked like a rich man. Guhan, who only had the Yu King sword on his back, looked like a new sword wielder who was preparing to buy a treasured sword grade man-made sword mistress. Gahan did not bring Qing Pin's sword with him because Qing Pin was sleeping in the real world. Outside his medical pod, Gahan did not bring Qing Pin into the game. Moreover, Qing Pin could not transform into a sword lady in the game. After being mute for a few hours in the Wudong Peak dungeon, Qing Pin was clearly not interested in entering the game. Young hero, come and take a look at my sword maiden. It's a treasured sword with more than 90% homogeneity. There's also a treasured sword Roland's sword from Britain. They're all top-notch man-made swords. Young hero, take a look. Guhan glanced at the artificial sword maiden that the swordsmith said had a 90% homogeneity. If the sword maiden's appearance was more than 65% homogeneity, Guhan would have changed his surname to him. Along the way, he got rid of countless sword blacksmiths who were bragging about themselves. Guhan's sharp eyes never found the person he was looking for. Guhan had come to Dragon Spring Street to repair his sword lady, the Yu-King. However, sword blacksmiths who could repair famous swords were basically all in the shops on the street. If you went to them, it would easily cost tens of thousands of RMB, not including the repair materials. With Guhan's current financial situation, unless he sold cornucopia, he would not be able to hire a famous sword blacksmith. Therefore, Guhan could only pick up scraps from the sword blacksmiths who had set up stalls on both sides of the street. According to his experience on the forum, there would always be a few unlucky sword blacksmiths who had extraordinary strength but bad luck. Among these new sword blacksmiths, one needed a pair of sharp eyes to find a sword blacksmith like him. Chapter 116. Guhan stopped in front of stall. This stall looked much more miserable than the other stalls outside. At the very least, the other stalls had a table covered with a red cloth, and various man-made swords were placed on the red cloth. However, this stall directly threw several man-made swords on the ground. It was not even willing to put a piece of cloth on the ground. With such a lazy attitude and the terrible appearance of these man-made swords, this stall was rarely visited. As the stall's owner, the swordsmith was lazily leaning against a rock. It was unknown whether he had fallen asleep or not. The reason why Guhan stopped in front of this stall with no future was because he discovered that among these man-made swords that looked terrible, there was unexpectedly a famed sword that was of high quality. Although the appearance of this high-quality sword was much worse than the other man-made swords. Sword wielders who were familiar with man-made sword ladies knew that there was only one standard to determine whether a man-made sword lady was good or bad: homogeneity. Homogeneity referred to the similarity between the man-made sword lady's data on paper and the imitation sword lady's data on paper. The closer the homogeneity was to 100%, the stronger the man-made sword lady was, and the higher its value. Generally speaking, there were 3 ways to determine homogeneity. The simplest way was to look at the similarity in appearance. You could directly compare the appearance of the man-made sword lady with the appearance of the natural sword lady. The more similar they looked, the higher the homogeneity. However, the accuracy of this method was not very reliable. It was only suitable for about 60% of man-made sword ladies. There would always be some sword ladies that looked worlds apart, but were shockingly homogeneity. A slightly more complicated method was to look at the patterns on the sword's blade. Based on the differences in the patterns, the similarity could be determined. The accuracy of this method was very high. About 90% of man-made sword ladies were suitable for this method. However, it required a lot of experience to make a judgment. This was because the patterns on a sword lady were too complicated and there were too many of them. Just like fingerprints, every man-made sword lady had different patterns. There was no unified standard to judge these patterns. One could only rely on sufficient experience to make a judgment. Ordinary sword wielders would definitely not be able to tell how much homogeneity there was from the patterns. The most complicated and accurate method was the lick method. As the name suggested, it was to use one's tongue to lick the sword's blade. According to the writings of Cheng Jianjun, the first human grandmaster appraiser, the man-made sword maiden's blade was divided into 18 major smells, 72 minor smells, 564 minor smells, and 2,333 minor smells. According to the differences in these smells, one could accurately determine the degree of homogeneity of the man-made sword maiden. According to historical records, Cheng Jianjun only needed to lick the tip of the sword, and he would be able to tell the degree of homogeneity of the man-made sword maiden. His accuracy was as high as 100%, and he had never made a mistake in his life. He was revered as the first appraisal grandmaster in human history. Before Cheng Jianjun, the title of an appraiser had stopped at the level of a grandmaster appraiser. Later on, people felt that comparing Chung Jianjun with other grandmasters was an insult to Chung Jianjun. Hence, a new title of Grandmaster Appraiser was created for Chung Jianjun. After Chung Jianjun, no one else could reach his level. Naturally, there was no second appraiser. Although Gahan was a genius, he had no interest in studying the lick method. He had only studied the patterns for a while when he was bored. Although he wasn't very proficient, it wasn't a problem for him to understand it. Guhan realized that the man-made sword lady that looked terrible had very beautiful patterns. They were even more beautiful than the 80% of the man-made sword ladies Gahan had seen. Guhan determined that there was a 90% chance that the man-made sword lady's homogeneity was above 90%. If a sword blacksmith could forge a famed sword lady with more than 90% homogeneity, he would be qualified to do business in the shops on both sides of the border. Although Gahan didn't know why he was reduced to setting up a stall outside, he was certain that he had found a loophole. There was hope for repairing the Yu King sword. "Stop! Don't touch her!" Just as Gahan was about to pick up the sword to take a closer look, a lazy voice stopped Gahan. "Newbie, you might not know the rules of Dragon Spring Street. You can only look at the swords here and not touch them. Once you touch them, you have to buy them back." Dragon Spring Street did have such a rule. As long as the sword lady and the sword wielder touched each other, there was a certain chance of synchronization. This was especially so for man-made sword ladies. Their chances of synchronization were much higher than natural sword ladies. Many shameless sword bearers didn't say that they wanted to buy it and just touched it, causing the synchronization to succeed. Once the synchronization was successful, the man-made sword would become the sword bearer's person. The swordsmith wouldn't even have a way to take it back. It was fine if the sword bearer was willing to pay. Some very bored sword bearers would say things like, "This sword is fated with me, so it should belong to me. This sword took a fancy to me. Not me. This sword is too trashy, I don't want it. Hurry up and give me a bottle of Dew of Cherishing Fate and let me erase the sword scars, using it to renege on the debt or lower the price." This caused a strong dissatisfaction of the majority of the swordsmiths, and there were several strikes and demonstrations. Over time, the sword committee issued a rule. When buying man-made swords, buyers were only allowed to look and not touch them. If they touched it, they had to buy it. Even if the synchronization was not successful, they had to buy it. Otherwise, they would be arrested by the law enforcement team and sent to the beacon tower to be on duty for a year to 10 years. "Master, this sword has a very high degree of homogeneity. I think it's at least 95%. Gahan deliberately said that it was more than 90%. "Kid, I couldn't tell, but you have good taste. Are you an appraiser?" As expected, the stall owner was overjoyed by Gahan's words. His entire face was full of smiles. "But your skill is still lacking." The exceptional sword appraiser, Master's son, said that this sword is at most 91% homogeneity. It's still far from 95%. The exceptional sword was a shop opened by the Swordsmiths Alliance. It was also the largest shop on Longquan Street. There were both skilled swordsmiths and appraisers with extraordinary eyesight working there. The appraisal result of the exceptional sword appraiser was no more than a 3% difference. The credibility of the appraisal was very high. Since Master has such ability, why would you set up a stall outside? You'll be treated as a noble in any shop. Why do you have to endure the wind and rain here? "Kid, don't tell me you're a spy from some shop, trying to poach me." The stall owner frowned. "Sooner or later, I, Gong Sun Ji, will take back my shop. Don't worry, don't have any designs on me." "No, Master, you've misunderstood. I'm just asking for your help." Gahan waved his hand. He took out the damaged King Yu sword from his back and placed it in front of Gong Sun Ji. "King Yu Gojian sword." Gong Sun Ji's eyes lit up. The entire sword was hidden in the scabbard, with only a small part of the hilt exposed. However, Gong Sun Ji was able to recognize King Yu at a glance. From this, it could be seen that Gong Sun Ji's skill was extraordinary. Whoosh! Gong Sun Ji quickly pulled out the King of Yu's Gojian sword. The originally bronze blade was now charred black, and there were even some faint cracks on the blade. The two sides of the blade were also curled up. It was a terrible sight to behold. "It's actually damaged to this extent. Kid, What kind of Yuan code did you fight with? Gongsun Ji asked Gahan in disbelief. It's nothing, just an obsidian dragon. What? You wastrel, you actually used a famed sword to fight a nether-level obsidian dragon. No wonder you're so bad. You're just a famed swordsman. How can you be so arrogant? You brats, you really don't know how to take care of your sword mistress anymore. Gongsun Ji criticized Gahan bitterly. If Gongsun Ji knew that Gahan did not fight a spiritual sword-level obsidian dragon, but an immortal sword-level obsidian dragon king, he would definitely stab Gohan to death in anger. It was just an accident. Gohan shrugged. Master Gongsun, can you fix this sword? Yes. Gongsun Ji nodded. But I need time. Man-made King Ugojin swords are very rare. Not many swordsmiths can forge them. I have to go back and search for materials to repair it before I can start. Come find me the day after tomorrow, and I'll give you an undamaged man-made King Ugojin sword. Man-made? Gohan smiled. Master Gongsun, you'd better look carefully. How can my eyes be wrong? You think this is natural? Gongsun Ji stopped talking. His wrist was shaking. Even though he said it was disdainful, he still took a few more glances. It was because of these glances that he lost control of his wrist. This really is a natural King Ugojin sword. Gongsun Ji trembled. The natural King Ugojin sword hasn't appeared in the game for 40 years. Even my master hasn't seen it. I can't believe I'll be able to see the natural King Ugojin sword with my own eyes and touch it with my own hands. For some reason, Sword Maiden Online hadn't dropped a token of the King Ugojin sword for 40 years. Therefore, no one had seen what the natural King Ugojin sword looked like in the past 40 years. Kid, I don't know what kind of luck you had to obtain the King Ugojin sword, but since it's natural, it'll be even more complicated to repair. Gongsun Ji hesitated. I'm afraid I can't give it to you the day after tomorrow. It'll take at least a week. No problem, I can wait. Gohan nodded. Natural sword maidens, especially rare ones like the King Ugojin sword, were extremely troublesome to repair. A week was already considered fast. How much will it cost to repair? Gohan asked again. He even added, if it's too expensive, I'll go find a better sword. After all, I'll be more at ease if it's a big company. 5,000. Other than the materials, I'll charge 5,000 for the repair. Gongsun Ji clenched his teeth. If it was a better sword, 5,000 RMB wouldn't even be enough to repair an ancient sword. Gongsun Ji's price couldn't be any lower. This was because repairing a natural sword maiden, especially one like the King Ugojin sword, was something many blacksmiths dreamed of. Therefore, Gongsun Ji lowered the repair fee to the lowest possible price. All right, deal. There was nothing to hesitate about. Also, you have to pay half of the repair fee in advance. Gongsun Ji suddenly added, I'm afraid that's not the rule of Longquan Street. Gohan's expression changed. Isn't the rule of Longquan Street that we don't charge anything before it's repaired? Hearing Gohan's words, Gongsun Ji's face changed colors. Finally, he said dejectedly, the materials needed to repair the King Ugojin sword are at least 50,000 RMB. I only have less than 30,000 RMB now. You have to give me at least 20,000 RMB first. Otherwise, I really can't do anything. 20,000. Gohan's heart skipped a beat. He only has about 1,000 RMB left from the dungeon. Where can he find 20,000 RMB for Gongsun Ji? Chapter 117. Should I go to another company? They definitely don't need me to pay in advance. Gohan gave up on the idea as soon as it popped into his head. If he went to a big company like Peerless Sword, he wouldn't need to pay in advance, but he definitely wouldn't be like Gongsun Ji, who only charged him 5,000 renminbi. They would charge him 10 times that amount, and charging him 50,000 renminbi was already a very generous price. Gohan thought about it for a while, then asked Gongsun Ji to wait for him. He then opened up the auction house's interface. He planned to sell the 5 bottles of treasure sword grade, due of cherishing fate, that he had obtained from the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center, as well as the white iron sword keepsake that was worth 10,000 renminbi. He clicked on the auction house's interface, and the first thing that appeared was an advertisement on the front page of the auction house. It said that in 5 days, the 198th Super Universe Live auction would be held. There would be many very precious and valuable super game items that would be participating in this auction, and all players were invited to participate. Gohan directly ignored this advertisement and searched for Treasure Sword Grade, due of Cherishing Fate. A long list of Treasure Sword Grade, due of Cherishing Fate appeared, and the price was basically around 6,000 renminbi per bottle. It seemed that the price had dropped quite a bit recently. Looking at the price of the white Iron Sword Keepsake, it was even more tragic. A single white Iron Sword Keepsake could not even be sold for 500 renminbi, and all of them were sold for 499 renminbi. Gohan was in urgent need of money, so he didn't bother planning out the best price. He directly set the price of the due of Cherishing Fate at 5,500 renminbi per bottle, and the white Iron Sword Keepsake at 450 renminbi per bottle, which was about 10% cheaper than the current lowest price. As expected, in less than 5 minutes, these items were all bought at the fixed price. After deducting the 10% transaction tax, Gohan received around 27,000 renminbi. After paying Gong Sunji 20,000 renminbi, he only had around 7,000 renminbi left. After adding Gong Sunji's contact number and giving him the Yu Wang Jian, Gohan silently left Longquan Street. Gohan was not worried that Gong Sunji would swallow his Sword Maiden, because he had already synchronized the Sword Maiden. Even if he swallowed it, he would not be able to use it, let alone sell it. It would be meaningless. Gong Sunji glanced at the military governor's name on his contact list. It sounded familiar, but he didn't think too much about it. He focused all his attention on repairing the Yu King's sword. Should I consider doing dungeons that are easier to earn money from? Thinking about the 35,000 yuan he had to pay Gong Sunji in a week and the 10 million yuan he owed the hospital in Liunyinling, Gohan felt a headache coming on. Since he already had more than 2,000 Quarks Game Sword Essence, he should not be lacking in Sword Essence for the time being. Spending some time to earn some money and redeem his debt as soon as possible should be a good choice. Thinking of Sword Element, Gohan's more than 1,000 Sword Element pills and 5 bottles of Sword Element oral solution had not been drunk yet. Gohan was not a person who liked to procrastinate. He first took out 5 bottles of Sword Element oral solution from his dimensional pocket and gulped them down one by one. He then poured the Essence Sword pills into his mouth and swallowed them all. In less than 3 minutes, all of these pills had entered Gohan's stomach. He looked at his attribute panel again. As expected, his Essence Sword had increased to 2,509 points. In the game, Gohan had become a sword wielder at the level of a treasured sword. Burp! Gohan burped. He had eaten so many Sword Element pills in one go. It was almost enough to cover his lunch expenses. As if to match Gohan's burp, his communication device rang. There were not many names in Gohan's contact list in the game. It was just Gong Sunji, who had just been added, and everyone in Songhama Small Party. The caller was Bright Moon of the Past. Military Governor, are you free now? Bright Moon of the Past did not beat around the bush. I'm free. All right, I'm at KFC Hotel now. It's the same private room as last time. Hurry over. Is it about the interview? Gohan remembered that he had agreed to an exclusive interview with a good friend of Bright Moon's for 30,000 renminbi a few days ago. He guessed that Bright Moon of the Past had contacted him for this. That's right. My friend is right next to me now. Hurry over. I'll treat you to a meal. After eating, we'll go straight to the interview. Bright Moon of the Past tone was very urgent. All right, I'll go now. Gohan, who had always regarded money as dirt, suddenly developed a strong interest in RMB. It was better to get 30,000 renminbi in his pocket as soon as possible. Gohan hung up and was about to head to KFC Hotel. However, just as he put down his communication device, it rang again. What was it? Gohan turned on his communication device again. This time, it was a notification. Dear Player Military Governor, someone in the game has read a paid post posted by your account, Military Governor 12580, in the forum. I am Military Governor. I will personally explain how to get an SSS rating. Paid 5 renminbi. After deducting 20% of the personal income tax, 4 renminbi has been automatically transferred into your game account. Finally, someone was willing to pay for my post? Gahan was instantly moved. But very quickly, something happened that made Gahan even more moved. Another notification came. Dear Player Military Governor, someone in the game has read a paid post posted by your account, Military Governor 12580, in the forum. I'm Military Governor. I will personally explain how to get an SSS rating. I think it's very good. I have tipped you 588 renminbi. After deducting 20% of the personal income tax, 470. For renminbi has been automatically transferred into your game account. This moved Gahan. He actually tipped me 588 renminbi. What a great act. Gahan felt the need to do something to thank this generous reader. Gahan didn't leave. He opened the forum and found the post posted by his account. When he opened it, there was only one reply. Nonsense. There was only one paid record. Of course, there was only one reply. The reply read, Originally, I clicked on this post with the intention of scolding the original poster. In the end, I discovered that the original poster is really a godly person. It's simply 666666. Please accept my knees. 588 renminbi for you. May I ask if you are really Military Governor himself? Gahan looked at the ID of the reply. It was called Real Constant Country. Thus, Gahan opened up his communication device, clicked on the friend ad interface, and entered the name of True Constant Ruan Nation. In the attached message, he wrote, I am the commander himself. Thank you for your support. The other party has set it to reject strangers from adding. Your request has been rejected. Gahan was instantly embarrassed. Gahan, who originally thought that he would be instantly added, actually encountered such a result. This was probably an eye for an eye. Countless people who wanted to add Gahan as a friend received the same system prompt. Sister Mingwei, will that Military Governor really come? In the KFC Hotel's private room, a cute, round-faced girl who looked like AI Fukura was anxiously asking Mingwei of the past. In this regard, Mingwei of the past patted her chest and guaranteed, No one has ever dared to stand me up. The subsequent knock on the door confirmed Mingwei's bold words. But when Mingwei of the past put her arm around Gahan's shoulder and introduced him to this girl who looked like AI Fukuhara, the other party was obviously startled. She was startled by the 4 scars on Gahan's face. Girls can't stand this. Just now on Ryukwon Street, none of the men cared about Gahan's face. Hello, my name is Kigo Fukuhara. I am the reporter and editor of Invincible Swordsman. Nice to meet you, Mr. Military Governor. Kigo Fukuhara extended her hand. Hello, I'm Military Governor. Nice to meet you, Miss Kigo Fukuhara. Gahan very considerately flashed his name above his head to show that he was indeed called Military Governor. Then, he squeezed the other party's hand for a bit before letting go. I didn't think that I could really meet you, Mr. Military Governor. Do you know that there are a lot of comments about you on the internet? Kigo Fukuhara summoned up her courage and asked the first question. Sorry, Gahan waved his hand. Mingwei said to treat me to a meal first. I am very hungry now. Wait for me to finish eating, then we will start the interview. With that, without waiting for Kigo Fukuhara's consent, he directly sat on the chair and began to eat the food on the table. Kigo Fukuhara was choked by Gahan, awkwardly stood there, not knowing what to say. Hey, Military Governor, you have such an attitude toward the little girl. You don't have any gentlemanly demeanor. That year, Mingwei gracefully sat beside Gahan, watching him eat while complaining that he didn't have gentlemanly demeanor. Do you know what it means to be a gentleman before the apocalypse? Gahan ate an abalone and rolled his eyes at that year's Mingwei. I came here just because you invited me to a meal. The interview is just on the way. Really? Hearing Gahan's words, Mingwei smiled so much that her eyes were curved. And that 30,000 RMB. Gahan spoiled the mood, and then said to Kigo Fukuhara, who was standing there awkwardly, Miss Fukuhara, take this opportunity to transfer that 30,000 RMB to me. Chapter 118. The editor-in-chief of Invincible Swordsman, Tiger Loves Cat, had been having a hard time for the past 2 years. The sales of his magazine had been declining for 2 consecutive years. In the past, it would sell more than 100,000 copies per issue, but now it had dropped to less than 30,000 copies. The profit was already in the negatives. Just now, the finance department had come to tell him that the money in the account was not enough to pay the next month's salary. Along with the physical magazine, the number of clicks on the website of Invincible Swordsman continued to plummet. The interview that was recommended on the cover of the front page did not even have 100,000 clicks after a week. On the website of Sword Bearer Story Club, a random recommendation spot had 500,000 clicks. Okay? To make matters worse, the chairman had come to talk to him yesterday. On the surface, he had comforted him, saying that he was not to blame for the low sales. It was the reader's taste that had changed. Then, with a sad face, he had informed him that the board of directors had completed the negotiations with the Yaoguang Sword Group. Invincible Swordsman had been sold to the Yaoguang Sword Group. Next month, the people from the Yaoguang Sword Group would return to take over the editorial department of Invincible Swordsman. By then, the future of Tiger Loves Cat would depend on the arrangements of the Yaoguang Sword Group. Tiger Loves Cat was already in his 50s. He could no longer withstand the ups and downs of time. All he could think about now was how to continue to be the editor-in-chief of Invincible Swordsman until he retired. If he wanted to maintain his position, then he had to produce enough results in a short period of time to convince the higher-ups of the Yaoguang Sword Group to let him stay. Hence, under Tigress Loves Cat's instructions, all the reporters and editors were forcefully sent out to find some big news, some eye-catching news that could rapidly increase the sales and attention of Invincible Swordsman. These reporters and editors also found out about the news of the Yaoguang Sword Group. Since they did not want to be kicked out, they were much more efficient than usual. In just half a month, more than 300 news articles were sent to Tiger Loves Cat's desk. Tiger Loves Cat glanced at them and threw them all into the trash bin. Yuzhong City's Gold Phoenix community hosts a resident soccer match. Two ancient sword wielders show up to cheer. Urban legend. Will the sword wielder brush his teeth or not? Pork prices rise? What dirty deals are involved? Wet for more than 20 days, finally dry. The first Liaha Cup milking cup has ended. What kind of damn news was this? Tiger Loves Cat finally understood why her magazine sales were so low. It was all the fault of these idiotic reporters and editors. The annoyed Tiger Loves Cat's communicator suddenly rang. He took a look and saw that it was a new reporter from a magazine called Kigo Fukuhara. This person, who had been shoved in by the chairman last month because of his connections, hadn't even submitted a decent manuscript in the past month. Originally, on account of the chairman's backing, this kind of person was fine. The editorial department did not lack someone like her. But the problem was, the chairman had already sold the magazine, and this little girl's backing was gone. Tiger Loves Cat secretly decided to fire Kigo Fukuhara at the end of this month. This way, she could cut out the unnecessary people and also show her loyalty to Yaoguang Group. Look, I pulled out the nail that the former chairman left in the editing department for you. I'm Xiang Yaoguang with a heart of gold. Hello, Kigo, it's me. I am Tiger Loves Cat. What's the matter? Although she had decided to fire Kigo Fukuhara, now is not the time. She must wait until next month, when Yaoguang Group starts to take over the editorial department. She must fire her in front of the people who came to take over the editorial department. If not, who would see her loyalty? Chief Editor, can you transfer the 30,000 renminbi you mentioned in the last meeting to me now? I need it urgently. Kigo Fukuhara's voice was urgent and nervous. Fuck, I can't even pay my salary now. How can I transfer 30,000 renminbi to this stupid newbie who is about to be fired? Am I stupid? Why would this Kigo Fukuhara want 30,000 renminbi? When did I mention 30,000 renminbi in the meeting? Wait, it seems like I really did say this. A few days ago, during the morning meeting, I seem to have announced that I was willing to fork out 30,000 renminbi to buy an exclusive interview with the recently exploding player commander on the forum. Could it be that this silly girl was planning to interview the commander? This silly child. Could it be that she was cheated by a scammer? Hey, Kigo, let me tell you, there are a lot of scammers in the game. They say that they know Spirit Sword rank, Immortal Sword rank sword bearers, that they know Bat's super secret, or that they have some SSS level strategy for Revenge of Alps. They're all scammers. You must not believe them. Tiger Loves Cat decided to save this silly girl's IQ. No, Chief Editor, he is not a scammer. I have now met Military Governor, is beside me. Hey, Kigo, you are still young, too young. Nowadays, scammers have their own specialties. Their deception is very brilliant. Let me tell you, Tiger Loves Cat was preparing to give a long lecture to this young newbie when he received a video file. The notification was sent by Kigo Fukara. When he opened it, it was a video of a young man with 4 scars on his face shaking hand with Kigo Fukara. On this man's head, the 2 words Military Governor were clearly visible. That's right, this person's game name is Military Governor. Tiger Loves Cat repeatedly confirmed the name on the video. There was no spacebar or hidden symbol that scammers often use. This player's name was indeed Military Governor. Miss Kigo, please be sure to maintain good communication with the other party. The editorial department will immediately transfer 30,000 renminbi to you. After Tiger Loves Cat hung up the call with Kigo Fukuhara, he was so excited that he was about to go crazy. He punched the sky and then fiercely pounded the ground. After completely venting out the excitement of coming back from the dead, he immediately called money. Little who, I ask you, how much cash do we have in our account? More than 60,000? Very good. You immediately transfer 30,000 to Kigo Fukuhara's account. Yes, it's that newbie reporter. I did not go crazy, nor was I cheated. This is related to the future of our magazine. I now order you to immediately transfer the money to her. If you don't want to transfer, then get the hell out of here. After confirming that money had transferred the money to Kigo Fukuhara, Tiger Loves Cat took the initiative to call Kigo Fukuhara and asked in a very gentle and kind manner, Kigo Fukuhara, did you receive the money from the company? Mr. Military Governor, did he agree to our interview? He agreed. That's great. Hearing Kigo Fukuhara say that the Military Governor agreed, Tiger Loves Cat excitedly bit the pen in his hand. Kigo Fukuhara, listen to me. You are a newbie. You may not be familiar with interviews, but it doesn't matter. During the interview, you can turn on a live broadcast. I will remotely observe from the office and guide you during the interview. 10 minutes later, Kigo Fukuhara's video invitation arrived. Tiger Loves Cat projected the video to the largest size in the air and began to remotely synchronize the interview. On the screen, the Scarface player with the Military Governor's name was sitting opposite the cameraman, Kigo Fukuhara. The interview officially began. Calm down. Kigo Fukuhara, don't be nervous. You first ask Mr. Military Governor to introduce himself. Tiger Loves Cat noticed that the screen was slightly shaking, which meant that Kigo Fukuhara, as the cameraman, was trembling nervously. Dear player, Mr. Military Governor, can you first say hello to our Invincible Swordsman audience and introduce yourself? Kigo Fukuhara used the most commonly used interview question to start the interview. Hello, everyone, Invincible Swordsman audience. I'm the player Military Governor of Sword Maiden Online. I am very happy to meet everyone through Invincible Swordsman magazine. Gohan's answer was also very accurate. Below, H stands for Kigo Fukuhara. T stands for Military Governor. H. Mr. Military Governor, I first want to formally confirm with you. Are you really the player who cleared the SSS class, Yuan-Go Jian, and the first player who found the Wudong Peak, main storyline Easter egg? Sorry, although I have seen your name, I still can't believe that I can sit in front of you. T, it's okay. I think this title can prove that I'm the SSS grade Military Governor. After Gahan answered, a glittering title appeared above his head. King of You, Go Jian Instance Dungeon's first player. Yes, I can't be wrong. Tiger Loves Cat, who was watching the live stream, slammed the table again. This title completely proved that Gahan was the Military Governor, the super player Military Governor who had cleared the game with an SSS rank. H, I can't believe it's really you. I'm really too excited. Thank you again for accepting our interview. T, don't thank me. You should thank the 30,000 yuan interview fee. Huinigua was so embarrassed by Gohan's words that she couldn't say anything for a long time. Don't worry, Miss Huinigua. We'll edit this part out later. Tiger loves cat, reassured Hui Naigua. H. Is Mr. Military Governor having financial difficulties recently? T. Yes, I recently owed a large sum of money to a certain family. I'm working hard to pay off my debt. H. Then Mr. Military Governor, you must take care of yourself. By the way, do you know that there are more than 1 billion discussions about you on the internet and the forums? T. I know that. I'm also a frequent poster on the forums. I've seen most of the discussions online. H. Then, why haven't you responded to the players who care about you online? T. In fact, I did. I posted an article online called, I'm Military Governor. Let me tell you how to clear the SSS Gray Dungeon. Where's the detailed description of how I cleared the SSS Gray Dungeon? H. So you've already responded. Then can you face the camera and tell us, the readers of Invincible Swordsman, in detail how you got the SSS Gray Dungeon? T. Of course. Guhan nodded, which made Fukuhara Hui Naigua excited. She also wanted to know how Guhan got the SSS Gray Dungeon. But the next second, Guhan's words directly made Hui Naigua fall into the abyss. I'll give you a preferential price for the copyright citation fee. I'll charge you 5 million yuan. Guhan said seriously. Chapter 119. Tiger Love Cat. Should we agree with him? Of course, Kigo Fukuhara couldn't do the 5 million renminbi idea. She could only ask the chief editor, Tiger Love Cat, who was watching the live broadcast. Logically speaking, Guhan was very serious when he proposed a price of 5 million. He had done it after serious consideration. In history, there were many difficult instance dungeons. After the appearance of paid guides, the accumulated reading fees had basically exceeded 5 million. Guhan felt that the price he offered was very generous. This was because the instance dungeon that he was going to announce was an instance dungeon that no one had ever successfully cleared in the past 200 years. But obviously, Tiger Love Cat didn't think so. He thought that Guhan was crazy about money and decisively rejected it. However, if the interview about the dungeon raid was missing, then the value of the interview would plummet. Tiger Love Cat thought about it and came up with an idea. He quietly said to Kigo Fukuhara, hurry up and find his post on the internet. Then, according to the content of the post, ask a question that wasn't mentioned in the post. Tiger Love Cat was very quick-witted. Didn't you post a paid post on the internet? It shouldn't be a problem for me to pay to read your post, right? After I read it, it shouldn't be a problem for me to ask some questions about the post, right? H. Sorry, can I look at your post, Mr. Military Governor, and ask you some questions? T. As long as it doesn't involve the specific strategy mentioned in the post, I don't have any objections. Guhan thought about it and agreed. Although answering these questions would more or less leak some information about the strategy, this way, it would attract more popularity for his own post. It would make more players interested to open his post and see what was said in the post. Thus, Kigo Fukuhara and Tiger Love Cat spent 20 minutes at the same time, carefully reading Guhan's post several times. They couldn't help but be amazed by the whole process of the strategy. Respected player Military Governor, someone in the game read your linked account. Military Governor 12,580's paid post. I am Military Governor. I will personally explain how to clear the SSS rating. After paying 5 RMB and deducting 20% of the personal income tax, for RMB has been automatically transferred into your account. Dear player Military Governor, someone in the game has read the paid post that your Military Governor 12580 has posted on the forum. I am Military Governor, and I will tell you how to get an SSS rating. After paying 5 RMB and deducting 20% of the personal income tax, for RMB has been automatically transferred into your account. At the same time, 2 such messages were transmitted to Guhan's communicator. Guhan's heart skipped a beat. He guessed that someone was watching this interview from behind. This person must be Hui Naigua's superior. Miss Hui Naigua, can you turn off the live broadcast? Guhan very directly said to Hui Naigua, our agreement only involves interviews, not live broadcasts. If you insist on broadcasting it to your boss, I think it's necessary to charge 3,000 yuan for the broadcasting fee. What? Hui Naigua was dumbfounded. Tiger Loves Cat, who was behind her, reacted quickly and shouted in the communicator, "Agree to it. Give him 3,000 yuan." This time, Tiger Loves Cat did not reject it. Instead, he agreed immediately. After reading the guidepost, he had a stomach full of questions and wanted to ask Gahan. Hence, 3,000 yuan was transferred into Gahan's account, which was very pleasing. The chief editor and I have finished reading your guide, and we have to admit that it's a very detailed and unbelievable guide. I never thought that the first and second main missions could be simplified from 40 minutes to only 40 seconds. May I ask, Mr. Military Governor, how did you discover this shortcut? Huinagua asked the first question. This was also the question that the chief editor, Tiger Loves Cat, really wanted to know. What was in this military governor's head that he could think of such a tricky and unimaginable shortcut? This requires a long time to sort out the information. Gahan thought for a while and replied, I spent a lot of time looking for all sorts of information on the forum. Finally, I found some posts that revealed some clues. After putting them together, I found this shortcut. H. Then can you reveal the clues you found from those posts? T. No. H. Air. We noticed that according to the plan in your post, the final battle with the boss should not exceed 10 minutes. As for how to defeat the boss within 10 minutes, you wrote it rather vaguely. Can you explain it more clearly? The last part of Gahan's writing was indeed vague because the last part was completely made up. It was impossible for Gahan to write about killing Fleeting Time Calendar, snatching the Yu King's sword, and clearing the dungeon as a sword master. At the end of the post, Gahan only gave a set of sword techniques and said that if he taught it to Kinzu Fleeting Time Calendar, he would be able to clear the dungeon. This was indeed a loophole. Gahan didn't know how to answer this question, so he casually said, Didn't I give you a set of basic sword techniques? As long as you practice this set of sword techniques diligently and show it to Kinzu, with Kinzu's talent, he'll be able to learn it after watching it twice. Then, Kinzu can use the Yu King's sword to kill the boss. Gahan's answer was just an improvisation. However, he didn't expect that someone would actually follow this method and actually succeed. As expected, the sword master only needed to read it twice to learn the basic sword technique. Then, he held the form of the king of Yu's sword and killed the boss within 10 minutes. The world was indeed very strange. H. Then may I ask, where did you learn this basic sword techniques? T. I created it myself. H. Oh my God, you can create your own sword techniques at such a young age. Your swordsmanship must be very good, right? T. It's just so. H. We saw that there was no information about the Wudong Peak dungeon in your guidepost. Can you tell us how you triggered the main storyline Easter egg here? T. Sure, it's still the same price. The copyright citation fee is 5 million. H. Revolving around the guidepost, Gahan and Huinagua talked for another 10 minutes. Huinagua decided to dig out more personal information about the military governor. H. Mr. Military Governor, I've been very curious since I saw you. Why do you have such a scary scar on your face? Is this how you look in real life? T. No, I'm not like this in real life. H. Then you deliberately said it like this when you created the character. May I ask why you said it like this? T. 5,000 yuan. This question is worth 5,000 yuan. Otherwise, I refuse to answer this question. Give it to him. Tiger Loves Cat roared in the office. T. According to my calculations, if you cut a scar on your face, you can increase a hidden attribute of the game character. H. What hidden attribute is it? T. 8,000 yuan. This question is worth 8,000 yuan. Otherwise, I refuse to answer this question. Give it to him. Tiger Loves Cat roared in the office. T. This hidden attribute, I call it lucky fate. H. Lucky fate? Hearing Gahan's words, Keisuo Fukuhara instantly thought of the previous broadcast that shook the entire game channel. She immediately asked Gahan excitedly, Mr. Military Governor, can the lucky fate attribute affect the probability of twisting an egg? A few hours ago, the broadcast mentioned that you had just cleared the Wudong Peak dungeon and obtained a golden egg. In addition to the golden egg from a Yu Wang Gojin Sword Instance dungeon, you've already gotten 2 golden eggs in a row. Is that the reason? T. 80,000 yuan. This question is worth 80,000 yuan. Otherwise, I refuse to answer this question. Give it to him. Tiger Loves Cat roared in the office. This news was too important. It was even more important than the SSS grade guide. He seemed to have seen the day when he would also get a golden egg. Chief Editor Tiger, our account is already less than 80,000 yuan. The finance department, who received another order from the chief editor to transfer the money, could not help but complain. I'll transfer it. I'll transfer it to you. I'll transfer it to Huinaigua. This news is too important. Tiger Loves Cat was so excited that he directly logged into his little treasury. This was the accumulated money that he had taken advantage of the company. It was more than a few 100,000 yuan. However, when Tiger Loves Cat was about to press the transfer button, he realized that this was illogical. Why should he pay for it himself? The magazine should be paying for it. Therefore, Tiger Loves Cat changed the transfer target to the magazine's company account. Then he said to the finance department, I'll first lend the company 80,000 yuan. Then you could transfer it to Huinaigua's account. Remember to write me an IOU. The interest is 1% a day. Gahan, who had received the 80,000 yuan, nodded at Huinaigua. That's right. Fortune is used to increase the probability of the toy capsule machine. Tiger Loves Cat exploded. He suddenly felt that his magazine was going to be completely popular. 6 hours later, Invincible Swordsman magazine, which had never been so efficient, quickly finished editing the interview video. Then, it posted the video on the homepage of its website. Almost the entire homepage was covered by the advertisement poster of the video. There were no other links. The advertisement poster was extremely simple. It was a player with the name Military Governor and the image of the first person in the King of Yu Go Jian Sword Instance Dungeon. Below, it was a red title. Exclusive interview with the first person in the King of Yu Go Jian Sword Instance Dungeon, revealing the SSS grade guide and mysterious fortune attribute. Another half an hour later, Invincible Swordsman's official website exploded. More than 5 million visitors had directly crushed the server quota allocated to the website by BAT. After an emergency request, BAT temporarily increased the server quota by 10 times. Only then did the website barely manage to run. A day later, the newbies who entered Sword Maiden Online had all become domineering, scarred men. Chapter 120. When did you become so short of money? The first thing you talk about is money. After the interview, Kino Fukura rushed back to the editing department to prepare the video and interview draft. Akira Moon of that year, who was silently watching the whole interview process, smiled and said the first sentence. I'm short of money. Guhan felt that there was nothing to hide. It was not a shameful thing to be short of money. I now owe about $9 million, so if you have any way to make a lot of money, remember to tell me. You actually owe so much? There's a game in reality? Hearing that Gahan owed $9 million, Minghua felt that it was a bit unbelievable. This military governor didn't seem like the kind of person who liked to spend money recklessly. As an ancient sword holder, no matter how much he spent, it was impossible to spend millions in just a few days. The reason is very complicated. In short, I owe so much money. Gahan obviously didn't want to talk about this topic. Minghua naturally wouldn't ask for the reason. She just calmly and firmly asked, Is it urgent? I'll lend it to you. You'll lend it to me? Although Gahan guessed that Minghua was very rich, he didn't think that she could casually lend $9 million to a stranger. It's not urgent. I don't need to change my creditor. Gahan waved his hand. Minghua understood that Gahan wouldn't accept her lending him money. She changed the topic and said, I heard from Toad that you've become an ancient sword holder in reality. Congratulations. There's nothing to congratulate. For me, it's just a matter of time. Since you asked me to come today, it shouldn't be as simple as accepting an interview, right? As soon as Gahan entered the door, he saw a man's coat hanging on the hanger in the room. Minghua and Huinaigua were both girls. How could there be a man's coat left in a room? This meant that before he came, there was another man here. When he saw him, he temporarily left. How did you know? Mingyu of that year was shocked. Her expression was solemn, Actually, other than Huinagua, there's another person who wants to talk to you. I was afraid that you would be unhappy, so I asked him to go out for a walk first. After you and Huinagua are done talking, we could talk about him. Let him come. Since you're willing to bring him to see me, it shouldn't be anything bad. Gohan smiled. What if it's something bad, or something that makes you unhappy? Mingyu's lips curled up as she asked. Then I'll reject him. Gohan smiled back. I believe that Mr. Military Governor will not reject my suggestion. A bold voice came from outside the private room. Gohan thought that the owner of the voice would push the door open after saying that. He didn't expect that he would knock on the door 3 times. Can I come in? Mr. Military Governor. Hello, Mr. Military Governor. I'm Yao Wang, the sect master of Yao Wang Sword Faction, Yao Wang. I'm also Ming Yu's brother. The person introduced himself as soon as he sat down. He was the sect master of Yao Wang Sword Faction, Yao Wang. He was also Ming Yu's brother. No wonder Ming Yu lent him 7 million. It turned out that she had the resources of Yao Wang's sword faction to back her up. It's an honor to meet you. So you're the sword spirit of Yao Wang. Your reputation precedes you. Military Governor is honored to meet Mr. Yao Wang today. What a pleasant surprise. Sword Spirit of Yao Wang was the title of Yao Wang. All spiritual swords and above would have such a title. Anyway, nice words didn't cost much. Gohan wasn't stingy. By the way, before I officially explain the purpose of my visit, I'd like to apologize to Mr. Military Governor. I didn't pay just now and listen to your interview from outside the door. I, Yao Wang, would like to express my deep apologies. I hope that I can get Mr. Gohan's forgiveness with this. Dear Military Governor, someone in the game has read the paid post posted on the forum by Military Governor 12580. I'm Military Governor. I'm here to explain the strategy to get an SSS rating. After paying 5 yuan and deducting 20% of the income tax, for yuan has been automatically transferred into your game account. Dear Military Governor, someone in the game has read the paid post posted on the forum by Military Governor 12580. I'm Military Governor. I'm here to explain the strategy to get an SSS rating. I think it's very good. I've tipped you 1,000,000. After deducting 20% of the income tax, 80,000 has been automatically transferred into your game account. Looking at the 2 messages that suddenly appeared on his personal terminal, Gohan instantly understood that Yao Wang had tipped him. This person was really generous. 100,000 renminbi tipped him just like that. This was equivalent to the RMB that Gohan had earned from the entire interview. Mr. Yao Wang is indeed generous. I forgive you for eavesdropping. It would be impolite for Military Governor to reject this reward. Gohan was not going to play around with excuses like, I don't deserve it, or take back your money and don't insult my dignity. Regardless of whether the money was given to him or used to exchange for his forgiveness, the money was his. This is just a small greeting gift. Yao Wang was also a little surprised that Gohan had accepted it so readily. However, he did not show it on his face. Then, Yao Wang will not beat around the bush with Mr. Military Governor. This time, I'm looking for Mr. Military Governor because I'm curious about you and want to have a chat with you. Secondly, I have a business deal that I'd like to discuss with Mr. Military Governor. Discuss business with me? Gohan rolled his eyes. Like your sister. Do you need me to clear a dungeon? Mr. Military Governor is indeed smart. I'll be straight to the point then. Yao Wang took a sip of tea. Last month, a member of my Yao Wang Sword Faction found a hidden dungeon in the ruins of Xianyang City. It's this dungeon that has been bothering Yao Wang for an entire month. Hidden dungeon. Gohan was shocked. This Yao Wang was actually looking for him to clear a hidden dungeon. In Sword Maiden Online, the Hidden Instance Dungeon was a very special and rare instance dungeon. The rewards from hidden dungeons were more than a few times that of main and side dungeons. Most importantly, hidden dungeons were often dungeons that no one had ever cleared before. It was said that the system would place a hidden dungeon in the game every year and set a very complicated trigger condition. Once it was successfully triggered, the hidden dungeon would be in a semi-active state. Only the player who fulfilled the trigger condition could enter the dungeon. Once the team that cleared the hidden dungeon obtained an S-rank dungeon rating or above, the hidden dungeon would instantly become fully active. It would then be added to the main dungeon or side dungeon's dungeon tree, becoming a public dungeon that every player could participate in. As the first player team to obtain an S rank or above rating, not only would they obtain a super reward of 10 times the drop rate of top-tier items, but they would also be able to choose any item from the entire dungeon's reward pool. If this reward pool included an absolute top-tier item like severed green hair, then they would also be able to choose any item they wanted. This was an irresistible temptation for every player. More importantly, if all the players in the team belonged to a sect, then the sect would obtain a huge amount of sect prestige and various rare rewards from the in-game council. Many unique sect buildings would be unlocked, and the sect would instantly become the focus of all players' attention and an object of gratitude. The most famous example was the current Sword Lady Online, #1 Sword Sect, Stormy Waves. This #1 Sword Sect, founded by Double G&D, was because they had taken the first S-rank dungeon every year for 15 years in a row. They obtained a huge amount of resources as well as a supreme position in the hearts of the players. That was how they defeated their opponents and became the #1 Sword Sect in Sword Lady Online. No wonder Yao Wang spent so much money to invite him to clear this hidden dungeon. As long as he succeeded in clearing it, Yao Wang's Sword Sect would obtain more than 100,000 renminbi. Gahan did not hesitate. How could Gahan reject the opportunity to clear a hidden dungeon that he might not encounter in his lifetime? Mr. Yao Wang, your team should have explored that dungeon many times, right? Is it convenient for you to show me the dungeon's information? Although Gahan made such a request, he was not sure if Yao Wang would show him the information. This was because Yao Wang's Sword Sect had spent a lot of time, resources, and even human lives to gather this information. It was too precious. It would be fine if Gahan expressed his willingness to join. However, if Gahan expressed his unwillingness to help after reading the information, Yao Wang would suffer a great loss. No problem. I've already prepared the information. Unexpectedly, Yao Wang transferred the information to his personal terminal. Thank you. Gahan thanked him and immersed himself in the information. This dungeon's name was very special. It was called King Arthur's Betrayal. However, note that King Arthur did not betray humans, but Yuan Ko. King Arthur, Artoria Pendragon, was one of the 10 heavenly kings of the Martyr's Palace. He was a powerful U-class Yuan Ko. 300 years ago, King Arthur, who had been fighting against humans, suddenly betrayed the Martyr's Palace and joined the human camp. He became the first U-class Yuan Ko to betray the Yuan Ko, causing a sensation in the entire human world. King Arthur's participation led the humans to launch a massive counterattack against the Martyr's Palace. Under the leadership of King Arthur, who was familiar with the Martyr's Palace, the humans destroyed more than 10 strongholds of the Martyr's Palace. They even killed 2 of the 10 heavenly kings, forcing the Martyr's Palace to hide in the dimensional rift. That period of time was the most glorious period of human history. However, in the 15th year after King Arthur joined the human camp, she mysteriously disappeared, and no one found any traces of King Arthur again. People began to say that the humans were afraid of King Arthur's identity as Yuan Ko, so they sent 3 immortal sword-grade swordbearers to ambush and kill King Arthur in the Medicine Cleansing Lake. This legend was very convincing and reasonable. However, the Sword Council and the Council had always firmly denied this point. The ending of King Arthur remained an unsolved mystery in everyone's hearts. Chapter 121. The King Arthur's Betrayal. Instance Dungeon was adapted from the story of King Arthur's escape from the Martyr's Palace to Yanjing City. The player's final quest was to protect King Arthur as he escaped back to Yanjing City. Letting the sword-bearers protect Yuan Ko as he escaped was something that Guhan found laughable. This instance dungeon was the entrance to a hidden instance dungeon that was unlocked in the ruins of Xianyang City by one of the Yaoguang Sword Sect's sword-bearers who possessed the sword in the stone. This instance dungeon was a famed sword-level instance dungeon. The entry requirement was 6 sword-bearers below famed sword level. The core members of the Yaowang Sword Sect had formed 5 teams to clear the instance dungeon. At the same time, they began to clear the instance dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal. However, what the Yaowang Sword Sect could not believe was that for the past month, they could not even clear the instance dungeon, let alone obtain an evaluation of S-class or above. Among the 5 teams, no matter which team it was, when they reached 60% of the instance dungeon's progress, they were unable to continue. They were stuck at that rate for a month. The Yaowang Sword Sect had used various methods and developed more than 10 tactics. However, they were still unable to clear the 60% threshold. Now, the morale of the Yaowang Sword Sect's clearing team was very low. A portion of the members had already expressed their desire to not waste time on this instance dungeon. What was more serious was that the news had somehow reached the ears of the 9th and 6th sects, the Nine-State Sword Sect and the Hung Shan Sword Sect. They had also found the players who possessed the sword and the stone and completed the chain quest to begin clearing the hidden instance dungeon. Although these 2 sects had started clearing the instance dungeon later than the Yaowang Sword Sect, they relied on their deep foundations to far surpass the rising Yaowang Sword Sect. Thus, they were able to quickly catch up. Together with the Yaowang Sword Sect, they were stuck at the 60% threshold and could not move. However, with the foundations of these 2 sects, the Yaowang Sword Sect estimated that they would surpass the threshold sooner or later. When that happened, all the efforts of the sect would become a joke. That was why the Yaowang Sword Sect found Gahan, the player who had successfully cleared the SSS-class instance dungeon for 200 years. He hoped to borrow the power of the military governor to help the Yaowang Sword Sect break through the bottleneck. Gahan read the information for 4 hours. During those 4 hours, Gahan did not say a word. Yaowang Sword Sect did not say a single word as he sat opposite Gahan and drank tea. Yaowang Sword Sect did not say a word. Yu Ming Mingwei Yu Chen of Moon could not stand the atmosphere. After 4 hours of reading, Gahan Sword Sect had grasped the basic situation of the instance dungeon introduced in the information. In addition, Yaowang Sword Sect also attentively attached the detailed log records and video recordings of every instance dungeon raid to the back of the information. This was equivalent to telling Gahan all the information Yaowang Sword Sect had about the hidden instance dungeon without holding anything back. This was Yaowang Sword Sect's greatest trust. It was also Yaowang Sword Sect's greatest sincerity. Gahan Sword Sect was moved by this sincerity and trust. 4 hours later, Gahan Sword Sect's body, which had been sitting upright all this time, suddenly relaxed. His whole body leaned weakly on the sofa, seemingly exhausted. "Mr. Military Governor, have you finished reading the information?" Yaowang Sword Sect waited for Gahan to rest for another 10 minutes before he could not help but ask. "Yes." Gahan Sword Sect nodded and rubbed his temples. "Moreover, I have some clues." "Really?" Yaowang Sword Sect could no longer remain calm. More than half of the tea in his hand spilled out. This was probably the best news he had heard in the past month. "Really, but it is just a guess. I need more information to prove my guess." Gahan Sword Sect's voice was weak. "This requires time, a lot of time." "Information? We have more. Our people have collected millions of words of information related to King Arthur. We can provide it to Mr. Military Governor." Yaowang Sword Sect said excitedly. "Give it to me. You have my contact number. When the time comes, just send it to me." Gahan Sword Sect nodded. "As long as I can find the information I need to prove my guess, I have a 70% chance of clearing the entire instance dungeon. As for the S-class instance dungeon, before I truly understand the strength of the team, I cannot make a judgment." "Good. I will send all the information and the ability information of the team members to you now." Unconsciously, Yaowang Sword Sect's address of Gahan Sword Sect had added the word "you." Yaowang Sword Sect's sword wielder was only 1 step away from the immortal sword. Using the word "you" to address Gahan Sword Sect was a very prestigious thing. "There is no hurry about the information." Gahan Sword Sect waved his hand. "Before that, I want to talk to you about my reward and then sign a contract. This is better for all of us." "Of course, Mr. Military Governor Sword Sect. Whatever reward you want, Yawang's sword sect can promise you. Yawang's sword sect said with sincerity. First, the entire instance dungeon is not completed in one go. It requires many experiments, which will waste a lot of my time farming essence sword pills. So I want to start from today until the end. It's fine if I don't succeed, but once I succeed in the S-Class instance dungeon, I want 100 Cork Essence Sword Pills as compensation. Gohan Sword Sect's first condition was that the market price of 100 Cork Essence Sword Pills was about 10,000 renminbi. In other words, Gohan Sword Sect's daily labor fee was 10,000 renminbi, which was higher than the salary of a civil servant. No problem, it's fair. Yawang's Sword Sect agreed without thinking. It was only 10,000 renminbi. As long as he could pass the S-Class evaluation, this was a very cost-effective deal. Second, I must join the team of 6 people, and the team must completely listen to my command. Gohan Sword Sect's second condition. Basically, Gohan Sword Sect's cooperation in all the instance dungeons. Gohan Sword Sect was not willing to accept the command of a fool. Command is not a problem, but the second condition made Yawang Sword Sect hesitate. Mr. Yawang, do you think that I'm not strong enough and will be a burden if I join the team? Gohan went straight to the point and said what Yawang was thinking. That's right. I won't hide it from you, Mr. Military Governor. As you can see, the intensity of the battles in this instance dungeon is quite high. 6 famed swordsmen are already very difficult to deal with. If we lose one of them, I'm afraid we won't even be able to complete 50%. After all, you're only an ancient sword wielder. Your information is outdated. I'm no longer an ancient sword wielder, Gohan declared proudly. Military Governor, you're already a treasured sword wielder? Yawang's complexion became much better. With the strength of a treasured sword rank sword maiden and the strength of an admiral sword master, perhaps they could just barely match the strength of a famed sword rank sword wielder. However, there was a requirement, and that was that the admiral's treasured sword rank sword maiden must be one of the top sword maidens in the treasured sword record. May I know who Mr. Military Governor's sword master is? Yawang made up his mind. If Gohan could get his hands on one of the top 20 sword masters, he would agree to this condition. I don't have a sword master at the moment. Gohan's reply almost made Yawang fall off his chair. I'm sorry, Mr. Military Governor. Before you get your sword master, I will definitely not let you enter the instance dungeon. Yawang did not always listen to Gohan. In the face of certain things, Yawang chose to persist. Don't worry, I don't have a sword master, but I do have a famed sword master. Gohan's words were like dynamite, exploding in Yawang's ears. This person, how could he have a famed sword master? This was impossible. Famed sword master, king of Yu's Gojin sword. Does it meet your requirements? Gohan threw another bomb in Yawang's ears. That was king of Yu's Gojin sword, ranked 18th in the famed sword record. How could a newbie like Gohan, who had only entered the game for less than a week, possess king of Yu's Gojin sword? A famed sword master that had not appeared for more than 40 years? This is impossible. Becoming a famed sword master in a week. Mr. Military Governor, how did you do it? Yawang lost his elegance once again and asked urgently. Sorry, it's a personal secret. No comment. Of course, Gohan would not tell Yawang that he only had around 2,000 quarks of sword essence. He was not a famed sword master at all. As for the Moon Gazer serpent, it was grafted from the dead Kinzu fleeting year calendar. Could it be? He consumed a large number of essence sword pills, so he became a famed sword master in just a few days? That was not right. Essence sword pills could only be consumed once a day. Even if he consumed a purple essence sword pill with 1,000 quarks of sword essence, it would still take him 10 days. Unless he consumed a golden essence sword pill, the kind that cost 5,000 quarks. That's right, it must be like this. This was the reason why he owed 7 million renminbi. He owed money because he bought the golden essence sword pill. Gohan did not know that Yawang had already very considerately imagined the reason why Gohan had a famed sword master. After understanding the reason, Yawang regained his calm. People were like this. If they could not understand something, They had to find a reasonable explanation to calm down. Since Mr. Military Governor has the King of U's queen, the second request is naturally not a problem. I agree to it, Mr. Military Governor. Thirdly, I need a large amount of sword-mark dust, crystals, fragments, crystals enough for me to raise the King of U's mark to grade 1. Raising a famed swordmaster to grade 1 required a large amount of resources. For a sect like Yawang's sword sect, these resources were a huge expense. It was more than 10 times more expensive than 100 quarks of essence sword pills per day. Mr. Military Governor, isn't this request a bit too much? The flesh on Yawang's face twitched. If he agreed to this request, he would really have to pay a huge sum of money. I heard that the success rate of the King of U's mark is only 20%. If you want to raise the King of U's mark to grade 1, I'm afraid you'll need 10 million renminbi. Mr. Military Governor, isn't this a bit too much? Is it a bit much? Gohan smiled. Is it a bit much compared to the first Clear's S-rank evaluation? It's just a drop in the bucket. Just like the Essence Sword Pill, I'll give it to you after it's done. Yao Wang gritted his teeth. As long as he could succeed, he would accept this 10 million. No, before we leave, I want to raise the King of U's mark to grade 1. Gohan said resolutely. That's impossible. If we fail, then wouldn't our Yawang sword sect lose 10 million renminbi? That's impossible. Mr. Yawang, think about it from another perspective. If we have the King of U's mark to grade 1 join the team, even if we use brute force, we should be able to push through the 60% threshold. All right, I forgot to say that my King of U's mark is natural, not man-made. Yao Wang's eyes were bloodshot as he stared straight into Gohan's eyes. After a long while, he closed his eyes. Sure, but if you fail, then you must join my Yao Wang sword sect. You must serve my Yao Wang sword sect for at least 3 years. Deal. Chapter 122. When Gohan logged out of the game, the medical pod had already been opened. His body was also placed on the hospital bed. The only thing that had not changed was that Qingpin was still lying on top of him. Qingpin probably felt a little cold. She even stuffed a pair of small feet into Gohan's loose hospital pants. The position of the tip of her feet happened to be on top of a certain sensitive part of Gohan. As a result, the moment he discovered this, Gohan began to grow bigger. Haha, today's weather is pretty good. Gohan quickly inserted his hands into Qingpin's armpits and carried her away from his body. Then, he tightened his belt and realized that in the entire ward, there was actually no one else but himself and Qingpin. This was not logical. Wasn't he staying in a VIP ward and enjoying the personal service of an exclusive nurse? It's good that there's no one else. Just nice. I can move around a bit. Gohan felt his newly grown left hand and then lifted Qingpin's little neck. Gohan, you're awake. Let's go eat meat together. Qingpin, who had been lifted up, also woke up from her sleep. The first thing she did when she woke up was to ask Gohan to take her to eat meat. Qingpin, do me a favor first, then I'll treat you to meat. What do you need help with? This penniless scholar wants. Before the penniless scholar could finish his sentence, his sword returned to its penniless scholar form. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword descends to the abyss. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword soldier kill. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword battling vault. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword inscription. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword spring. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword break. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword curtain. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Sword in the field. 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Peace before the sword. In one breath, Gohan practiced the 9 words sword formula of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven once in the ward. Gohan only went through the sword techniques and chi circulation methods of the 9 sword formulas once, and did not really use the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. Otherwise, the ward would have been blasted into a pile of ruins by Gohan's sword chi. After practicing once, Gohan had a systematic understanding of his body's condition. First of all, his left arm had indeed grown back. Whether it was his reaction speed or nerve control, it was exactly the same as his original left arm. In fact, it could even be said to be stronger than before. This was good news, but naturally there's also bad news. The bad news was that the meridians in Guhan's left arm had all returned to the state of a baby. The use of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven required the use of a person's meridians to transmit sword essence. According to the general outline of the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, the left arm had 3 meridians and 14 acupuncture points that needed to be unblocked. In the past 12 years, Guhan had spent a whole 5 years to unblock these 3 meridians and 14 acupuncture points. But now, these meridians and acupuncture points had closed again. Although it would not take too much time to unblock them again, with the experience of unblocking them the first time, Guhan's left arm would be considered useless for a long time. What was more serious was that among the 9 words sword formula of the 9 words of mysterious heaven, 5 of the sword formulas required the cooperation of the left arm's meridians in order to be used. In other words, half of Guhan's killer move, the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, was already useless. Lord Guhan, why are you up? You can't move right now. Guhan's personal nurse finally arrived. Looking at the deep imprint on her face from the keyboard, she must have slept very well. You came at the right time. I've fully recovered. I'm applying to be discharged now. Guhan threw the Qingpin sword back onto the bed. Then, with a flash of starlight, Qingpin spread his arms and legs, forming a Chinese character. His eyes were lifeless as he lay on the bed, looking as if he had been played by Guhan. Discharged? But the doctor said that your arm will have to stay here for at least 5 days. The personal nurse immediately refuted Guhan. 5 days? How much is the hospital fee for these 5 days? Well, it seems to be about 20,000 yuan, for 1,000 yuan per day. I've already given you a 20% discount. This is a VIP intensive care unit, after all. When the exclusive nurse revealed the price, Guhan's determination to leave the hospital was even more firm. I know my arm best. Either you help me with the discharge procedures now, or I'll do it myself. You only have these 2 choices, Guhan said resolutely. Seeing Guhan's attitude, the nurse had no choice but to jog out of the ward. She was probably going to report this problem to the doctor. After a few minutes, the nurse jogged back. Lord Guhan, the doctor said that we must give you a comprehensive examination. Only after you have fully recovered can you be discharged. Otherwise, our hospital won't be responsible for any problems. I can't believe that after 1,000 years, the hospital is still like this. Guhan complained. Let's go. Where are we going for the examination? I'll go with you. Guhan, bring me. Qingpin will go with you. When Qingpin heard that Guhan was going for the examination, he immediately recovered from the state of being played. He jumped from the bed to Guhan's shoulder. You're so annoying. Guhan, where's Qingpin's small room? Small room. Guhan was stunned for a moment before he realized that Qingpin was probably referring to the pouch hanging around his neck. When I get home, I'll buy another one online. Hello, please lie on a number 1 examination seat. We will immediately start a comprehensive examination of your body. When Guhan heard the voice, he suddenly felt that it was somewhat familiar. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw that it was the reasonable doctor again. Hey, how have you been? There is a saying that if 2 strangers met more than 3 times in a very short period of time, it would be the beginning of a perfect relationship. Of course, Guhan did not know this saying. He just felt that since they had met twice, it was only right for him to greet her. Damn, it's you again. The doctor was also very speechless. Why did she meet this man again? Sorry to trouble you, but please help me do another examination. TSK. The last time we met, it was a brain health examination. This time, it's a full-body health examination. The doctor was amazed. She walked to Guhan's side and looked at him a few times. What did you do this time? Something wrong with the game again? It's nothing. Yuan Ko chopped off one of my hands, but thanks to you doctors, it grew back. His hand was chopped off. Lady Doctor was taken aback. It wasn't like she had never seen a person with a severed hand, let alone a severed hand. It wasn't like she had never seen a person with a severed head that was frozen. It wasn't unusual. However, this guy had only become a sword wielder for a few days. How could he have such a cruel fight with Yuan Ko? Wasn't he a little too diligent on the battlefield? Let's get to know each other. My name is Song Yifei. The girl reached out a hand to Gahan, indicating that she wanted to shake hands with Gahan. Gahan looked puzzled. Song Yifei blushed and explained, I don't mean anything else. I just think that it must be very interesting to be friends with someone like you who comes to the hospital every day. Oh, it's indeed very interesting. Guhan smiled and shook Song Yifei's hand. Hello, I'm Gahan. Hello, I'm Qing Pin. Qing Pin sat on Gahan's neck and put a small hand on Gahan's and Song Yifei's hands. Gahan, let's do a body examination together, okay? Get off me. On the computer screen, the data of Guhan's body gradually appeared on the form. Compared to the previous two tests, the test this time was much more detailed. There were more than 100 items of body data. Originally, the examination room for Guhan's discharge did not need to be so complicated. However, the leader of the hospital suddenly ordered Song Yifei to use all the testing methods and test every item on Gahan thoroughly. Only after everything was confirmed would he be allowed to leave the hospital. Song Yifei could not understand why the hospital would pay so much attention to this sword wielder named Gahan. Of course, she did not know that Long Quan, the secretary of the dean of Yuzhong University, had a 5-minute call with the dean of the hospital. More than 100 items of test data were released one by one. Everything was very normal. Soon, there were only a few pieces of data that had not been confirmed. Nerve sensitivity, normal. Sperm activity, high. Corpus spongiosum. What the hell is this test? Song Yifei blushed and turned off all the data. Sword element value, 1,119 quarks. Everything is normal. There seems to be no problem. Chapter 123. No wonder you lost an arm in just a few days. Although strength is important, you shouldn't risk your life. Did you sneak out of the city? Song Yifei asked Gahan out of nowhere. Left the city? I didn't leave the city. Although Gahan did not know why Song Yifei would suspect him of sneaking out of the city, he could not put the blame on him. The Bay City was very strict with humans leaving the city. Without special permission, ordinary people and sword-bearers were not allowed to leave the city. However, there was no such thing as climbing over walls. If a person decided to sneak out of the city, it was not difficult, as long as he was prepared to bear the consequences of being discovered. It was easier for ordinary people. If they wanted to go out and seek death, they could do so. Nobody would care about the life or death of an ordinary person. If they were caught, they would just have to pay some contribution points and a fine. They would not even be sent to jail. However, if sword bearers were discovered sneaking out of the city, they would be severely punished. The lightest punishment would be to spend a few years in jail, while the heaviest punishment would be to be assigned to the beacon tower. In short, if sword bearers were discovered sneaking out of the city, they would have to pay a heavy price. You still won't admit it. Song Yifei threw a report to Gahan. Then explain to me what's going on with your sword essence. Sword essence? Gahan's pupils dilated as he looked at the report. He trembled and pinched the edge of the paper as if he was going to tear it into pieces at any time. What? Are you scared? I was right. Song Yifei thought that Gahan was trembling because he was afraid that he would find out that he had sneaked out of the city. I don't understand. You've only become a sword bearer for a few days. Why did you risk your life to sneak out of the city to fight with Yuan Ko? Yuzhong University will arrange for all of you to go out of the city for actual combat. There will also be high-level sword bearers by your side to protect you so that you can get through the most dangerous stage of growth. Isn't that safer? Yes, secretly sneaking out to fight with Yuan Ko by yourself. This kind of growth is far faster than the Academy's unified plan, but you're playing with your own life. Do you know how many sword bearers Yuan Ko cripples me every day? How many unlucky sword bearers would he clean up their remains? Most of the sword bearers died without even leaving behind their bones. As Song Yifei lectured Gahan earnestly to cherish his life, he thought to himself, this fella is quite amazing. In just a few days, he's already accumulated more than 1,000 quarks of sword essence. The dimensional vortex of a mouse-level Yuan Ko could at most increase his sword elements by 7 or 8 quarks. This guy had actually killed more than 100 Yuan Ko in just a few days. Moreover, he did it secretly and killed them all by himself. Isn't this amazing fella a little too much? With his ability, I'm afraid that following Yuzhong University's team would be a real waste of time. I didn't expect you to guess everything correctly. Gahan threw away the report in his hand in resignation. He sighed and revealed a desolate expression. I admit that I snuck out of the city, but due to a moment of carelessness, I actually fell into your hands. Kill me or torture me. Do as you please. Why did you have to be so radical? Why can't you be more cautious? Song Yifei did not say what he was going to do with Gahan. Instead, he began to ask why Gahan did this. There's nothing to explain. If your parents and sister also died under the attack of Yuan Ko, you'll understand what I'm thinking. I'm sorry, I don't know about this. Song Yifei's heart softened when he heard about Guhan's miserable life and saw his sorrowful expression. Don't worry, I haven't sent this report up yet. I'm the only one who knows about it now. So what? Aren't you going to tell on me? Guhan stared at Song Yifei with his red eyes. Song Yifei was so embarrassed that he turned his face away. I won't tell on you this time, but you have to promise me that you will never sneak out of the city again. It's too dangerous. Well, Gohan hesitated for a while and gritted his teeth. He looked like he had made up his mind. Okay, I promise you I won't sneak out of the city anymore. Word or no proof. I have to supervise you. Song Yifei was not stupid. He knew that Gohan was probably trying to fool him. How about this? Give me your number. I'll contact you once a day to see if you're staying in the base city. As long as you're happy. After completing the discharge procedures, Gohan walked out of the hospital and was on his way home. On the way home, Gohan did not say a word. Even when Qing Pin, who was in Gohan's arms, threatened to pee on Gohan, Gohan ignored it and walked home mechanically. The reason why Gohan was silent was because of the extra 1,000 quarks of sword essence. After leaving the hospital, Gohan purposely found a secluded corner. When Qing Pin pouted, Qing Pin still returned to his sword and used Sword of the Abyss. A total of 11 sword energies danced around Gohan, cutting all the junk in the corner into pieces. One sword energy of Sword of the Abyss would consume 100 quarks of sword essence. 11 sword energies would consume 1,100 quarks of sword essence. This math problem that even a child would not get wrong told Gohan that he indeed had 1,100 quarks of sword essence in his body. After becoming a sword wielder in the game, Gohan had also stepped into the threshold of a sword wielder in real life. As long as he synchronized with a sword wielder, Gohan would truly become a sword wielder. Everything happened so suddenly and so unbelievably. It was like when he suddenly found out that he had 100 quarks of sword essence and became an ancient sword wielder. However, what was the source of the 1,000 quarks of sword essence? This was something that Gohan could not figure out at all. Of course, it could not be to go out of the city to hunt Yuan Ko, as Song Yifei had guessed. The readers who had been reading this novel all knew that our Gohan had been staying in the city obediently for the past few days. Apart from killing a demonic beast and logging into the game for a while, he did not do anything else, let alone go out of the city, which was a troublesome matter that the author could write dozens of chapters on. So, where did the source of the 1,000 quarks of sword essence come from? Gohan carefully recalled what had happened in the past few days. He felt that there were only two things that could have increased his sword essence. One was that Qing Pin had killed the demonic beast and obtained the sword essence from its dimensional vortex, which allowed him to increase his sword essence by 1,000 quarks. It sounded very reliable, but in fact, it was a very nonsensical guess. First of all, the demonic beasts were soul-level essence silhouettes. Even if they died, they would only be able to absorb about 50 quarks of sword essence from the dimensional vortex and transfer it to him at most, about 25 quarks. At most, he would be able to absorb 30 quarks. It was a far cry from 1,000 quarks. It was impossible. In that case, could it be that because this demonic beast had evolved from a small demonic beast, it mutated and produced 2,000 quarks of sword essence in the dimensional vortex? This was a certain possibility. After all, Gahan had the template of a main character. It was still acceptable for such a mutation to happen once or twice. However, in reality, it was still impossible. This was because Gahan had asked Qingpin. The sword essence absorbed from the dimensional vortex was still stored in Qingpin's body. Qingpin had not had the time to transfer it to Gahan. It was precisely because of this that the possibility of it being the demonic beast was completely eliminated. There was only one possibility left: the 1,000 quarks of sword essence obtained in-game. When Gahan fought the demonic beast, his sword essence was still more than 100 quarks, so he must have obtained the 1,000 quarks of sword essence after killing the demonic beast. After that, Gahan only stayed in-game for a few hours and did the following things: negotiating with Yao Guang, accepting an interview, finding someone to repair King Yu, and receiving the reward from the Dungeon Settlement Center. He swallowed various pills and oral fluids worth 2,000 quarks of sword essence. Clearly, negotiating, interviewing, and finding someone couldn't increase the sword essence in his body. The only possibility left was the 2,000 quarks of sword essence that Gahan had swallowed. With this in mind, Gahan's thoughts gradually became clear. The crux of the problem was likely the 2,000 quarks of sword essence. The actual sword essence Gahan measured was 1,119 quarks. The previous measurement was 110 quarks. In between, Gahan had increased a total of 1,009 quarks of sword essence, and Gahan had swallowed 2,000 quarks of sword essence in-game. According to 0.9%, Gahan's theoretical increase in sword essence should actually be 18 quarks. There seemed to be a strange connection between the two numbers 1,009 and 18, revealing the truth of the matter. However, Gahan couldn't figure out where the connection was. "Gahan, we're home. If you go any further, you'll hit your head." Qingpin, who was in Gahan's arms, suddenly stood up and bit Gahan's neck. Gahan felt the pain and escaped from the world full of numbers. Only then did he realize that he had walked to the entrance of the residential area. If he took another step, he would directly hit the door. "Welcome home, master." When Maiden opened the door and knelt at the door with a docile look on her face, welcoming Gahan home. "Hey, is Qingpin's meat ready?" "Qingpin wants to eat meat." Once home, Qingpin jumped onto the table and clamored for meat. The glutton in her stomach had completely flared up. "It's ready. This morning, I received a call from Lord Gahan, so Maiden prepared her favorite dompa pork for Lady Qingpin." After saying that, Qingpin opened the lid of the bowl on the table, and a bowl full of dompa pork appeared. Qingpin cheered, and without washing her hands, she grabbed a piece of dompa pork and stuffed it in her mouth. "Qingpin, I told you to eat with chopsticks." When Gahan saw Qingpin's careless and unruly manner, he had a headache and tried to persuade her. At that time, Qingpin ate with her hands. Qingpin swallowed the dompa pork in her mouth indifferently, and then her little face instantly puffed up in dissatisfaction. "Gahan, this meat tastes completely different from what Qingpin ate before. It's so disgusting." "I'm sorry, Lady Qingpin. I don't have enough money to buy natural pork, so I had to buy some synthetic pork." When Maiden explained timidly, Gahan smiled bitterly. It seemed that until now, the food expenses at home were still paid for by Wen Maiden. Thus, Gahan patted Qingpin's head. "Bear with it. When I pay off my debt, I'll treat you to natural pork every day." No, Qingpin doesn't want to eat synthetic meat that tastes disgusting. Qingpin wants to eat delicious natural pork. Don't fool around. Aren't synthetic pork and natural pork the same? Aren't they both pork? Gahan persuaded helplessly. "No, synthetic pork tastes disgusting, and natural pork tastes delicious. How can they be the same thing?" Qingpin was firm in her belief. If there's pork in the name, are they really the same pork? "Let me tell you this." Halfway through his words, Gahan had a flash of inspiration. He left Qingpin and went straight to his bedroom. As he walked, he said, I understand. I understand. I understand. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.